scene, right?
I hope so too. So yeah, thanks for coming down, man.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Appreciate it. So what's the good word? What's good in the hood?
Well, I'm just waiting for my tea to boil, but
Hell yeah, that green tea.
yeah.
Don't
No,
worry.
it's cool because I'd never been here before. You know, like you moved out here. When was that?
4th of July weekend, 2022.
But I saw you when you first came out to visit.
Yes. I
And
think
then-
you showed me around the place.
Yeah.
You took me to Terry Black's for
Uh-huh.
the first time.
Is that still your favorite place?
I go there probably once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm burnt out on barbecue.
Really? See, I don't know. You know what it is, though, because I'm doing the high protein ketogenic diet.
Okay.
So it kind of fits right in for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you want to go out to eat something relatively quick. What are my options?
You leave out the
Barbecue.
free bread.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
You buy Fiesta.
And my wife can't have gluten, so there's just no bread at our table no
Yeah.
matter what. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's just a good option. And I, you know, started exploring the different types of barbecue. You know, like we got one down by me that I like. My wife gets the potato with the barbecue on it, whereas like Terry Black's doesn't offer that. You
Yeah.
know? So there's like different little pockets of barbecue, you know?
Yeah. Are you doing any barbecue yourself?
Well, yes, I'm actually waiting. My neighbor is getting me a Traeger.
Uh-huh.
One of his friends could get like a retail, whatever, like to get them at cost.
Yeah.
So it just like takes a month or two for the order to come.
Yeah.
So I am actually waiting for
Got
a
it.
Traeger, which I know is not like the real Texas offset smoker. But
I mean, it's really good for what it is. I have one.
Right.
And then I quickly learned there's a difference between barbecuing and grilling.
exactly.
So I'm from East Coast, so
Sure.
we say the word barbecue, but I've just been grilling. You know, burgers, shrimp, hot dogs. That's grilling.
Yeah, yeah, like
but I
on the-
haven't done any barbecuing myself.
Yeah, on the East Coast, hey, you want to come down to my barbecue? And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. And it's like hot dogs and
Yeah, yeah.
hamburgers and some chicken, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll. The only thing I've been using it for is just to smoke, like when I do meal preps. So like I'll smoke some ribeyes, do that for like 20 minutes, and then I'll like turn it up to high heat just to like sear both sides. But I miss having a regular grill
Yeah.
because you can't sear it. There's no like open flame. It's more like an oven.
But can you get like a cast iron, like, and put it on the smoker?
It's not the same because again, it's more like an oven. It's baking it all the way around. So
Yeah,
I do miss having like a regular grill. I'll probably just get one afterward.
sure. That's the East Coast that you can't let go.
Yeah.
I'll probably be doing the same thing. I was
Yeah.
like getting this Traeger and I'll tell my wife, yeah, I can't wait to make chicken. And like, you know, and like, that's like probably taboo to like a real Texan, you know? Like,
Well, all I do is cook. If I cook anything, it's just two things. It's just steak and it's chicken.
right.
That's it. My daughter actually the other night, she was actually punking me. She was clowning me. She's like, oh, I love mama's food. I was like, yeah, Papa cooks too. She goes like, yeah, just steak. I was like, no. Like I also make noodles. She goes, yeah, you get the pot, you put the water, you get the chopsticks. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right. But that's my go-to. Like if I meal prep, it's just steak and chicken.
Yeah.
The Traeger's great for that.
Cool. Then I'll probably, that's what I was thinking, like starting with the chicken, you know, maybe buying some sausages from like a butcher or something. And then when I'm feeling froggy and have a few consecutive days off, which never seems to really exactly happen because, you know, even when you're off, you've got something to do,
Yeah.
even if it's like family oriented or whatever. Then that's when I'll probably jump into the briskets, you know, like,
Okay.
because I know that that's more of like a time commitment. But I do know that the Traeger makes it more possible for someone like you or
Yeah.
I, because it's more set it, forget it. Right?
Yeah, it's easier because it has the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi and you can put a timer on it. It'll auto fill the pellets, but
Exactly.
I barely touch that thing.
But I wonder. Oh, so you don't even use that?
I don't use the
aspect.
Wi-Fi feature.
Yeah, because you're just cooking chicken relatively
I'm,
fast.
I'm doing it within an hour.
You're
I'm done.
standing there,
Yeah.
maybe checking on
Yeah.
something in the house, coming back out.
I'm not using it to its full potential.
Yeah, not yet though, not yet, or maybe never. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna buy it and not even use it, to be honest.
That's how it is because at least for me, when I get into things, like I want to get the best stuff. And I see you're probably the same way too with the setup that you have.
Absolutely.
You're like, you want the best of everything.
Of course.
And then this way, like, and same thing when I got into painting, like, what's the best paint? What's the best brushes?
Exactly.
And like maybe that alone will get me committed to it.
Yeah.
And it has. It's kept me in there for about like a year or two with painting.
No, it's funny because I do the same way. I get so into the gadget side of it that almost for me that might even be the most interesting part, like just the rabbit hole of like what I have to do to like get going, and then how that might keep me into it. And it's funny how we're like looking at like a year is like, oh yeah, it really kept me into it because I'm so I know for me anyway, I'm so quick, like jumping around to things and, you know, like jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy. So I'll like you said, get something real like cool technology and it'll keep me into it and it'll extend it from like 3 months to like a year and a half. And then I'll still probably drift. But at the same point, as I get older, I kind of just accept that that's how I am, you know? So.
We have a lot of interests, you know, and it's not a bad thing. You know, like I got into biking when I was in New York.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
I biked before, but when I was in New York, I was like, I want not the best bike. I wasn't going to get the top of the line one, but I got a really good bike. I got nice gear for it, and I ended up using it for about like a year and a half.
Well, you did that ride was it from New York to Philly?
Yeah, New York to Philly.
That was alone too, right?
Yeah, that was like right after we had this. I was like a hurricane or a tornado.
Didn't you do it after? Wasn't there like fucking down trees in the way?
Yeah. So along the West Side Highway, the trees were literally like knocked over towards the ocean. Yeah. And then I've also flown that bike over to California. We rode from Chino Hills to San Diego. That was like another 130 miles.
I remember
so
that.
Just out of a couple like trips like that, it made it worth it.
Sure.
You know? And just riding.
No, you were so into it. And I remember even you had like gadgets, like things to blow up your tires, and you had like luggage that the bike fit in. And And even I remember, and you probably remember me asking you, I was like almost interested myself. Just, I think mostly not even the actual riding. I just wanted to buy
the novelty
something.
of the gear. I learned about bike packing. So that's what that was. Like that was, there's road bikes. I used to ride fixed gear. There's BMX, but then there's like people who go like bike packing with like gravel bikes or off-road, and you know they carry a lot of stuff made for like longer distances.
Sure.
I entertain the idea of like riding across the US too. So like when I start to fill my head with these goals, it's like cool, like I can buy all these things so that I'm able to like push towards those goals and like try to do it.
Yeah.
But I realize like how much of a time commitment it is, and I always have to ask myself, is this something that I really want to put all my time and energy into?
Yeah.
And it's like I like biking, but I don't like biking that much.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with running or with painting, whatever else, because there's just so many interests and we have so much like limited energy. So it's like, where do we decide to put our energy for each day, for each month, for each year?
I agree. And I feel like literally that hits home for me very closely, even just with what we're doing right here, right now with this like podcast and, you know, making the investment in all the gear and more so than just financially investing into the gear. It's the investment in literally learning how to operate all this stuff. And I think I'm a little bit of a control freak in that sense, and not even in a negative way. I guess I'm just very interested in learning it myself, as opposed to just like, you know, we were talking before the podcast about, you know, hiring like a studio to do this for you. But like for me, it's like I couldn't just surrender the vibe or my vision for how it should look and feel and operate to just someone, you know, so I think that investing in all this gear now, I'm like committed.
Yeah.
And I would be like a real sin to just like, okay, tomorrow I'm not going to do this anymore after I just spent like, you know, heaps of money and, you know, hours on my computer, you know, things freezing and punching keyboards, you know, like I'm here, I'm in it, I'm in the trenches, you know, and I like that. I think there's something great to that. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
some people, they think the money commitment is going to get them to go long term. Sometimes it's the energy commitment of knowing like you've spent the resources and the energy and time to like study and do the research and like get everything up and running. Like that alone is the investment in it. But it's okay to try a bunch of different things. And if you're going to get into something, it's better to like do it right and get fully committed into it.
Yes.
But then it's just also learning, like tattooers, for example, some people that I've mentored, like they want to learn all about videography so they can save that time and energy and like they can record their own stuff. But it was like, is that where you want to put your time and energy to learn that? Or would you rather pay somebody else to do it for you? And you find somebody as close as possible, and then you can spend more time and energy on your craft.
Sure.
So for you, this is an extension of who you are. So it's like, this is what you want to put your time and energy into. It's perfectly fine. But if it's just, something off to the side, you just wanted to just try it out. Yeah.
I agree 100%. I actually, you said what I was thinking. Like, and it's just what it means to you is how, like, in some situations, it actually is more beneficial for you to delegate. I mean, I guess it's like, I guess we'll talk more about it in a second with your new studio Upside. Like, you have a team built around your operation, right? Because, maybe there's something you don't want to manage because then it'll take away from your tattooing.
Yeah.
So I think to, like, touch upon more what you're saying, like with this, for me, I actually think that one of the things I do enjoy most is talking to people and like getting things out of them and kind of like latching onto their energy in a way. So for me, this is something I do want to learn.
Yeah.
But there are many other things. Like, for example, I don't want to change my oil in my car. You know, I can, you know, but that's, for me, that's not worth my energy.
You don't love cars that much.
I don't. In fact, I really don't like them at all. I don't think. The older I get, you know, I find, like, as long as it works. And
didn't you kind of did back when we were in New York?
Yeah, but I still don't not. I just think that, like, I like them to the level in which I stopped liking them at.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my car's kind of cool. I got a couple modifications on it. It looks nice. It sounds nice, and I'm good.
Good enough right here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to go to the track or anything, you know, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, I get that same way. Like, if I buy a car, typically I want it at the spec. I'm never going to aftermarket modify it. Mm-hmm. So I want to buy it at the level
I see.
that I'm very comfortable at with spending and all the parts and whatever it is.
Perhaps the sport edition or something.
Yeah, then just leave it right there.
Yeah.
The first car I bought was an FJ Cruiser, a Toyota, and it's meant for off-roading.
Cool truck. Yeah.
And I bought it off the showroom floor, and it was like all the works was done to it, you know, lifted, tires, rails, everything. I bought it off the showroom floor. Not a single time have I taken it off road. I just like the aesthetic of it.
Oh yeah.
And it just left it right there.
If anyone understands, it's me. I have a Toyota Tacoma that I did lift and put bigger tires on and all that stuff. And I never took it off the road. But what I will say is I do jump curbs sometimes when there's no good, convenient turnaround.
It's good to have that for that.
Yeah. And, you know, it sounds kind of, you know, not to get like too preppery and shit, but I actually like having a capable vehicle in my like repertoire, you know, just so that, you know, say shit does hit the fan. And it doesn't even have to be something crazy, but just, I don't know, there's some whatever, people panicking or fucking protesting, you know, and I need to get over a curb or just kind of go through some off terrain.
Yeah.
I like knowing I can, you know, whereas like with my Volkswagen, I'm kind of bound to the road, you know, so
you're stuck. Maybe you can get through a narrow space, but that's about it.
Although like sometimes I like to fantasize about being like, you know, shit hit the fan, you know, and all that stuff and getting off road. But I think once I get off the road and then something else occurs, I don't know what my next move would be. You know, it's like people spend their lives training for these kind of things. I doubt my Tacoma is going to save me, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's only as far ahead as you plan.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And then all the unplanned, all the things you didn't anticipate, you're not prepared for it.
Right. Like I have survival food in my closet, and, you know, cool, it'll last me 2 weeks, but what about after the 2 weeks, you know? It's like, but, you know, it's something, you know.
It was in the Costco aisle. It's good. It's good to pick up.
You know? So let's talk about your new beautiful studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think when you went to go visit?
Thought it was amazing. Awesome. Yeah. Clean. Just has, you know, I could see the nuance and the particularness in the design, everywhere from the smell to the light, you know. As a detail oriented guy, I definitely could pick up on, you know, everything was, you know, little touch of green, you know, like very soft light. It was great, you know. Cool.
Yeah. Meticulous. Like, that's the way that I envision, like, hopefully the inside of my brain looks like, or at least I'd like it to operate that way.
Sure.
And everything's just always like, it just has to flow and feel right. And I've noticed that with how I organize like my house, or for every shop that I've worked in tattoo spaces, I'm constantly tinkering with the space of like looking at a bookshelf and moving it over and taking things down and seeing if there's balance, if the frames are measured a certain way. So like things just have to feel right from every angle, you know, whether you're a client, you're an artist. So we designed it so that it's this open box concept. So it's like a 4,000 square feet space, and there's no walls other than like the storage room and the restroom. But the idea was that if we wanted to move any of the tattoo setups or the furniture to do mentorships or to do a mini convention or something in there, like we have that ability to do so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we set it up. So right now it has like 8 tattoo spaces in a sort of square format. They're on like, you know, jiu-jitsu mats.
Yeah.
10 by 10. We're all tattooed on the floor. And then in the middle of it, we have like our gratitude circle. So that's where we start our day. We do some breath work, gratitude share. And then to the left side of that is the creative space where most artists are doing a stencil, or we'll have like a paint or drawing session there. And then there's this couch there that we haven't really used because it just doesn't feel right to sit on it. It's so white. It's just a nice like art piece that just sits there. But everyone, like, no one ever uses that couch at all.
I'm not going to lie. At your studio, I feel like I don't even know that I want to sit on a couch, like because you know the feeling that you created with like the, you know, and we could talk about it with the mats, how you guys, you know, tattoo on the floor.
Yeah.
It makes me almost want to just sit like on the floor, honestly. And I think I did when I was there.
Yeah. Especially towards the end, we got everyone to sit down and
like, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it all the way. Like if I'm hanging out in there at any point, I'm sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like I wouldn't want to sit on the couch.
Yeah. Well, the feeling was our slogan is like welcome home. So we want people to feel like as if you're at somebody's house.
Sure.
I mean, that's how it is at my house. Like upstairs, if you go to our second floor where we have like a low couch, we're all sitting on the floor playing with my daughter. You know? So it's just a sort of like feeling of like when you're younger, you're hanging out at your cousin's house or your friend's house, you know, and you're all just kind of, you know, kicking it, relaxing. But I was tattooing at Devotion with David, and clients are on a regular massage table. I was on a chair, and I just felt inclined to like want to sit on the floor, but most tattoo shops you don't sit on the, so you don't even want to.
This is the history you're saying, where you got the idea of the floor.
This is where it came from, and I just felt inclined to like I wanted to just, it was just something different I wanted to do.
And for those listening, the way Andy does it at his shop is there's no massage tables, no tattoo chairs. Everything takes place on a mat on the floor.
Well, we have massage tables. We just took the legs off.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you had to like prop up someone's like head or whatever. But like in general, everything's
low to the ground.
Yeah, and the artist is on like the floor in all different, whatever positions comfortable.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how is it? How is it personally tattooing that way? Do you find there's like obstacles, struggle, or is it just like freeing and comfortable? Or
it brings like a kid-like energy out of it, because you're not sitting in one place for a long time. Most tattoo artists, when they're tattooing, you sit in a chair and then you start to like you slouch over, and then you're just like left in this like tucked position.
For sure, yeah.
And you're stuck there for this long period of time.
Yeah.
But like you're sitting cross-legged, you may be kneeling, you may be leaning to one side. And we do have some furniture. We're working on like some custom, we're working with this woodworker to make a custom tattoo bed now that inclines on both sides. It has a certain foam density to it. And, you know, so we're going to build the furniture, and it's in like a second prototype stage. And then we also have, for the tattoo artist, like it's like it's meant for meditation cushion, but it's like, it has a backrest to it. So you can lean back on it. Okay. So you can sit on the floor, whether cross-legged or you want to prop yourself up with, you know, a thicker cushion.
I see.
And it gives you some relief for your knee. But I never find myself sitting in one position for a long period of time.
So you kind of like, you start adapting to it, and then you're like seeing like as time went on, like new, you know, pads or ways you can kind of prop your knee up, or you can like kind of go in like maybe a rotation of positions yourself to stay comfortable.
Yeah. And it gives your body's constantly moving, right? Which I think is a good thing for as far as the mobility of the human body. You know, instead of just sitting in one posture locked for a long period of time, then you get up after like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you know you're stuck in this really sore position. And for the most part, after about 45 minutes to an hour, your body's telling you to like, I need a break. So that's a perfect time. It's
You're
like
saying
an internal clock.
It becomes more evident. Like the detriment you are doing your body in one position, like when I'm say traditionally seated when I'm tattooing somebody, I'm not getting that alarm quite as evidently, because it's like comfortable enough to like keep me kind of stuck. It's almost like life. It's like complacency in a chair. Whereas like you're like, okay, maybe this is hurting my knee because it's pushing here, but it's fine. It worked for 30 minutes. Yeah. And it was great for 29 minutes. Now it's saying, okay, this is, you know, a little sore or whatever, or I don't know, sore is probably not the right word, but
sore's right. It's this internal clock that's telling you like what's going on with your body that needs to be adjusted, that just has to be moved.
And how do you find that does this have like any, like, does it change the way you work, or like the actual art? Like, does it translate to like a more creativity or more fluidity, or like something that you can see reflected in the actual tattoo?
Technique wise, definitely. Taking a lot of breaks and stepping away and looking at different angles helps you reset your vision.
Sure.
You know, so
I certainly know that, even not like that. That's just because I have some kind of fucking ADD or something.
Most artists are like tunnel vision, so they're just looking at this one angle for a long period of time. Yeah. But like if you just step away from a little bit, and you just look from different positions or angles, or you kneel and you're looking from higher, you get to kind of see where your values are.
And you mean literally? Because like I take a lot of breaks, but I'm still coming back to the same like vision. You're saying like, you're like, okay, I was sitting low and now I'm going to go up on my knees.
Yeah. And then you go, okay, I have to adjust the values here, or change whatever, move the stencil or something. Like you figure out what you need to adjust along the way, because you're looking at it from a different perspective.
Right. Like literally. Yeah.
But one of the other benefits is like if you're sitting on the floor, it's almost like forced stretching the entire time. So
that's
like,
what I was thinking.
My hips, my knees, like they're way better than they were before because when I was sitting on the ground, my knees were like kind of like they were up, but now like my knees can almost like literally touch the ground.
You're almost doing like a butterfly stretch, and at some point, and you're just moving.
Yeah. So what I've said before is like sitting on the floor is like the equalizer as far as like health wise, because like if you can't sit on the floor, like your health is kind of fucked.
Well, actually, I did yoga with my wife a few times, and not currently. It was like probably when I was at my more worst shape in my life. And one of the positions they had us lay in, which it's funny, there was a whole name for it, and you probably know more than I do. I'm not too keen on yoga, but there was a position where you just lay on your back.
Savasana.
Right? Yeah, is that what it's called? And it was obviously my favorite position because we were doing like this hot, like intense yoga. But it hurt my back. Like just laying flat on the floor. Yeah, just flat on a hard floor with like a thin mat between me and the floor actually was like hard to, like it hurt. I wanted to get up.
But what does that say about your body?
Exactly. Well, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like to reiterate what you're saying. Yeah. I've experienced it firsthand and agree. You know.
And that's also the wonderful thing about tattooing on the floor and on these mats. Like our shop is clean, you know, like we're all no shoes also. So the whole shop is clean the whole time.
And actually to talk more about that, because we came to your grand opening ceremony there, my wife, like as soon as we left, she's like, I love that no shoe thing. And she asked me, can we please, and we do wear shoes in our house currently, and I know it's a common thing to like not wear shoes in houses, especially for a lot of different cultures, but she was like, can we please, you know, because we're in the market for potentially buying a home soon. She's like, once we buy a house, can we not wear shoes in there? Can we do that? And I'm like, sure. Like, you know, that sounds good to me. You know?
You're tracking like everything from the outside to the inside.
If you think about it, it's really like actually kind of gross in a way, right?
Yeah, I've seen some people like go onto their beds with their shoes, and it's like, why?
Yeah,
like, you're gonna take a shower, you're gonna feel clean, you're gonna sleep on there, and like you've got your outside, you know, clothes or your
literally, like I mean, you go use a public bathroom. Sometimes you're literally stepping in puddles of piss or something. Yeah, and it's like, cool. I'm just gonna like walk in fecal matter and then just walk through my living room where my kids are gonna play on the floor or whatever, like, you know, or my dog, and then the dog's gonna like get on the couch. Like it's like literally just like bacteria. So I think like, you know, after my wife was at your studio, she was like, hey, could we like, you know, adopt this practice?
Yeah, it's good hygiene.
It is. Yeah, I like it. I think it's cool, man. And I'm happy what you have going on because it does feel like true to you, you know. Yeah. And for me, that's like my favorite thing that for anybody, like whatever you're doing, if it's like in alignment with what you really are and it like, you know, radiates from you, for me, that's like the best thing ever, you know?
Like, I really like it. I feel like that's my home. Like, you know, like my home is, I feel really comfortable when I go to work. I feel really comfortable, and the people who work there, it's not for everybody.
Exactly. You know? But this is what I mean.
Yeah. And I've questioned it. Like, is this too much? Is this crazy? Like, am I asking a lot from different artists or different clients? We haven't had any clients complain about it. If anything, they like the vibe and the experience, and more clients are falling asleep, you know, in that sort of space. For the artists, it takes time to adapt, again, just to be able to sit on the floor. Like, how often are you sitting on the floor in your lifetime? You know, but if you can get used to that, and again, we're working on different types of furniture so you can get, you know, more comfortable at some point. But one artist did ask, she was like, well, what happens if we're pregnant? I was like, if you can't sit on the floor, like, we'll get furniture to adapt to you. Like, we'll get regular tattoo chairs. We'll get regular,
like you're not the fucking Gestapo. Like,
if we need to adapt, then that's fine. You know, but for the most part, people are like, no, we like this. Yeah. And that's the kind of artists that are drawn to the space. Sure. And then the sort of clients, like, we filter out our clients through like our social media and like what we present. Yeah. So,
and I think a lot of us do that in our own way, you know? And I think that's kind of like what I was saying before, like in the sense of like, you're just doing it. And I respect the outside of the box, you know what I mean? Something different, you know? But I think that, I just think it's cool. Yeah. That's simply it. Like it feels true, you know, it feels real. Like, what better way to like find people on, you know, Wavelength, that your own way, you know, I'm big on that myself, you know, maybe it's a little bit different than yours in that sense, but I still respect like people just doing what is,
there's
great.
Different, like everyone has their unique flavor, their unique personality, and like bring that into whatever it is that you're doing, you know, whether it's tattooing or cars or podcasts, whatever it is, like it shouldn't always be the same.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, it shouldn't be the same. I don't even think it can be. It just would make for a very uninteresting world, right? Like,
well, I mean, a lot of tattoo shops look the same, and you can see certain trends when it comes to tattooing or tattoo shops or anything. Like there's always going to be this, because we're gonna pull from certain aesthetics and things that we like.
Sure.
So I don't know if mine is necessarily fully original, but if somebody else likes what they see, then sure, they can adapt that, and somebody else is going to continue to change it. And
I think even like the literal personal vulnerability for me is very intriguing, of like doing something different like that, because then when you do something very off like the typical trend, you open yourself up to the criticisms, you just all that stuff, so I just think like that there's even like more like a spiritual aspect to it, like doing anything off of the norm.
Yeah, it's what feels right, and I've seen some comments like, why sit on the floor? What's it's too quiet in there. I don't know if I could work there. And I'm like, good. It's not for you.
Right.
Like it's for me. Like it's
exactly.
And I've said that before. It's like, this space is specifically for me. And then you find your tribe of people who like that.
Yeah. Like I'm sitting here with you right now talking to you and consider you a friend, and I don't know that I would work at your tattoo studio, you know what I mean? And that's awesome. That's
okay.
great.
Yeah,
exactly. Like it's fine. You know what I mean? I think that's like the beauty of it. And when you truly do something in alignment with yourself, you kind of drawing a line in sand with like who you are and what you believe and what you value. And it doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't align with it is the enemy or like not, in alignment with you maybe in other aspects of your life.
No, but what you find is people who do the same thing, like let's say like you, then you like, I don't really use a line like real, recognize real, like your own, like, that guy's fully embracing who he is. I have a friend who's like,
exactly,
embrace your inner freak. That's just who you are. It's just different, and that's okay.
Right.
But when you start to like live inauthentically and you're trying to like pull from other perspectives, and I get that. I've done that before because we're trying to find like our identity or who we are, and it took a lot of time to be able to figure out like this is me. I'm okay being however you put your descriptions of me from what you see online. I'm okay being that.
Yeah.
But for a while, like I kept a lot of my personal stuff outside because I was afraid of what other people would say. But as I get older, I'm just like, no, like this is who I am. I'm okay with all parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like, to talk back what you're saying, you like real, recognize real, like you could be in your lane doing something completely in alignment with like who you are as a person. And I could be here doing something completely different, like on the whole other end of the spectrum, but I'm doing it in alignment with myself. We're still actually on like a similar wavelength.
We're not taken away from each other.
Yes.
Like at all. Like we're actually,
I'm saying more similar than different, really.
Yeah.
Like it's like you see like some like militant guy and some hippie or something could be like best friends because they're actually both living truly, and that alone is similar. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if that makes any weird sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking shit too. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, it's just all about like, I'm trying to find every part of my life that I have to enjoy every part of it. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy or I'm not going to put effort into it, but I have to enjoy every single part of it. Like from when I wake up, what I do, how I spend my time, to my commute to work. Like I want to enjoy all parts of it. And if I can't, can I make the most out of it? So like, for example, when I was living in New York, I started driving to work, and it was 45 minutes driving 9 miles in New York City.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Then sometimes it would take 30 minutes to drive around the corner from Center Street to Mott Street to park your car.
I've done it.
Yeah. So 45 minutes driving to work, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I would see cyclists riding past me. So that's when I was like, I'm going to start riding my bike.
That's where that's where the bike
So
came
then
from.
I started to get my exercise in. I started to like commute from home to work, and it was 9 miles, 45 minutes on the bike. And then when I was done with work, it was taking maybe 35 minutes, on a bike coming back home. So it was just really nice to be able to like find those gaps of like, what do I not like about this aspect of my life, and like, how can I change it? And I think if you can do that, like you get to enjoy all parts of it, and then that's embracing yourself more and more.
Sure. Yeah. No, I relate. I try to think of myself as somebody who is a little, self-aware to a degree. Like even if I do something that is not perfect per se or in alignment with myself, a lot of times when I go home at night, I like scan through my own system and like know it. You know what I mean? I'm not completely unaware of even my own unhealthy tendencies, but I think sometimes it's just like, mustering up the the courage or effort to like change it, right?
Yeah.
So I think you were saying something before. I forget exactly what you said, but it made me think of one of my favorite quotes. It's not. I don't know who said it either. It's not always simple, but it's easy. No. It's not always. It's simple, but not easy. That's my favorite quote. And I think to like touch upon what you were saying. To make
change?
Yeah, it's simple but not easy. So it's like to recognize it is very simple, right? But then to take the action is like the actual hurdle, like, right? Well, I don't know though, because for some people actually just recognizing it might be hard too, right? But I guess for me, I should say, and probably why I resonate with the quote so much.
Well, it takes discomfort to make that change. It takes new effort, right? It takes admitting to how you were before and like to take that change. Like it's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, for me, that's the part I don't struggle with. Like I can see what's wrong, you know what I mean? And then it's like the part that I sometimes struggle with is the action, you know what I mean? And I shouldn't even say that, because sometimes I feel like I do take the action when it's something I'm truly interested in changing, if that makes any weird sense. Yeah. Some things I can live with. Like, you know, my wife will tell you, you know, like, oh, you leave this here, you leave that there. And it's like, yeah, I know. I can walk home when I walk inside every day, I can like remove my shoes that I just messily threw there. Yeah. I know it. I walk past it every day and I literally say that. Yeah. But I don't want to spend my energy on that because I like want to run up to my computer and like.
It's not important enough to you.
It's not.
You'd rather save that time.
Exactly. Because it doesn't bother me. It bothers you. Yeah. So now like it's almost like I put the ball in her court. Like you have to decide if you want to be with someone who like doesn't value that same nuance the way you do.
Now that puts the conversation into like where you put the importance in the relationship, right? If you value that person to make that adjustment or not.
Like for her, you're saying. Yeah. Exactly, which I guess she does, you know. But like, yeah, it's just interesting.
Both ways, right? For you to like value her to like want to change it, or for her to like value enough to stay with you or whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I know that the girl had a rough past 2 days or whatever, or has a lot going on at work. Like maybe I'll tidy up the shoes because she values it. I don't, but like I'm just doing that now because I understand how important it is to her and how important she is to me. Yeah. So it's just like, but you're right. There's like a little bit of like
your compromise for the relationship.
It's funny. Because my wife is like very, you know, I always say that she's more like you, like particularly, you know, like I could tell like a little more meticulous, but yet still creative. You know what I mean? Like, so that I always like, I've said that to her before, that when I, you know, would be with you, you're more her type of personality.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because you have that, like, you know, from what I could just observe and just what I know of you, like, you know, things in order, you know, you have things like with a nice system, but there's still, you know, you're still an artist, you know what I mean? So it's like interesting. Whereas like sometimes I feel like I'm the complete opposite type of artist, where I'm like all over the place, like immersed paint on my face or something, but there's still a little bit of structure enough where I'll like do things like, you know, coordinate this or, you know, like, so it's like a yin and a yang, you know?
Yeah. I just like knowing where like things are, you know, and one of the lines I use at home with my daughter, like everything has to have a home, you know? So like our shoes have a home, our backpacks have a home, so that when she's crying and she's missing her ring, it's like, well, where did you last see it? Well, I don't know. Like, where's its home? And she'll go back to the little bowl where her things are supposed to be in. Oh, there it is. Like, so it makes it easier for you to find whatever that thing is. And I didn't grow up that way. Like, I was a kid that had all the clothes on the floor. I would never clean. But I think over time I adapted it because I always saw my parents cleaning and always encouraging me. But I just always wanted to perhaps rebel or push away and not do it. Yeah. And then once I started to like have my own space and I really cared for, you know, my room and my apartment and my house and my tattoo space, my tattoo shop, then it was just like, okay, now I understand, like, I want the things that I care for to be clean, to be organized.
Yeah. You know? And I guess I'm on a similar trajectory kind of, because I guess as the older I get, and it's like more things that are mine. Like I wouldn't keep my tattoo space here a mess. Like for me, that's because I value this space. This is my space.
It's sacred to you.
And I built it. Like I came in here and I, you know, curated every way it looks. And, you know, even if it's not, you know, much, it's mine. Yeah. Right. And I feel that way. Like, for example, like we don't own a house, but I rent a house. And maybe I'm a little less because I know it's not like mine. It's not permanent. But I do feel like if I were to buy a home, I would be that way because now it's mine. Like I put the down payment. I pay the mortgage, you know. So I think, just to say what, you know, agree with what you're saying. I think as I get older or like kind of like invest in more things or they become mine, I think it becomes. But just to go back what you were saying about your daughter as well, like with the home, I think that's a great lesson. Like, I think maybe it's something I might even apply to my own life because it's so simple.
It's a reflection of your headspace, you know, like where you know where things are and how clean it is. So like you just look around, you know, in your house, in your car, and it's like, what does it look like? You can open any drawer in your house, and it's like you just don't care about certain things. So it's just like kind of thrown into this, and you have that sort of place in your brain where like some things you just don't care about. You just compartmentalize it. Other parts are like really tidy and neat, so you're able to like recall certain memories or events or things.
Did you say draw or drawer?
Drawer.
Okay, no, because I got that.
Was off.
I got that whole New York thing. The drawer.
So it's a drawer.
The drawer.
It's a drawer.
But it's funny.
Yeah.
But it to relate this to something my wife had told me like recently, because you know since I lost some weight, I bought all new clothes and all that, and you know she would always. My wife's into fashion and clothes, and like she really takes care of her clothes and sneakers and cleans them and all that stuff. And she was telling me, because I would wash them on the wrong setting, you know, like wash them on high and wonder why they're faded and, you know, and all that stuff. And she told me that I needed to change my perspective, like about my relationship to the clothes, and that all I need to, you know, put in my head is simply like that I deserve to have nice clothes. Yeah. So then I put that in my head. And now, like, when I'm undressing at the end of like a long night or something, instead of just like winging my T-shirt into like a, you know, unanimous pile in the corner, I'm like, you know what? I deserve to keep this shirt nice. I'm going to hang it, or I'm going to fold it, or I'm going to, you know, put it in like a hamper that's designated that's going to get you know, and I'll be washing the clothes, and I'm like, oh, let me measure the detergent and make sure it's on cold, you know, just because I deserve to have this nice shirt that I worked hard for and to continue having it be nice. And it's like, wow, that little like tune is like, you know, a big can make the world of a difference.
Marie Kondo, she wrote this book, and she has a Netflix series. She talks about things like sparking joy for you. You know? So
I've seen it briefly.
So like I love that concept of like everything that I have, like if it stays for too long and like it doesn't spark any joy in me, like it's just a souvenir shirt from this one event that I don't care about, like I can get rid of it.
I'm with you on that.
But I have a shirt that my wife bought me for my birthday 2 years ago, and I just love the material and the fabric and the feel of it. It has a couple holes in it, but I still really like it. So it's one of the few items that actually hangs in my closet, along with like a couple other items. So
I agree with that. We just went through my closet, and it's like, you know, I couldn't help but thinking about like Eminem cleaning out my closet, you know, but really there's like actually validity to that. Like I got rid of anything, and what, you know, like Marie Kondo would say, spark joy. I kept a few like sentimental items, but very few. And I just wore items that I truly wear, kept items that I truly wear, truly enjoy, or spark joy. And if it doesn't, like, you know, I don't want it. Like this convention t-shirt from, you know, 2008, like, no. Garbage, you know, and then I'm telling my wife, oh, but I could cut it and, you know, use it to clean. Nope, garbage. You know?
You can, I mean, it also helps you when you're buying new things, right? Because you know your mindset is in this way. You'll be more careful with the things that you buy.
Yes.
So we're not as like careless to just like buy a bunch of, you know, whatever the things are.
Absolutely.
To just let it sit, because now I start to value my space that is storing all these things. So it's like even our Christmas items, it's like, where's it going? Like, how much Christmas stuff do we actually need to buy? We're going to have a certain amount of bins for it. We're going to store it upstairs. Are we just going to use it one time and like toss it out? Like Easter eggs are like, fucking hate them right now. So my daughter loves Easter eggs, but we have so many of these plastic eggs, and it's just like, what are we doing with them? But I just know like next school year comes around, we're just going to give them all back to the school, and she's going to come back with even more, because that's part of like the way the holiday works.
No, I agree, man. 120%. I'm literally on this frequency, like currently in my life, with all, you know, now that I have a garage with all this, you know, what is this? I don't need it. You know what I mean? And sometimes I even like, and I don't know if it's just a luxury of like, you know, not being, you know, financially like hurting in a sense, like something like I don't need it right now and it's in my way. And I'm like, you know, if there ever comes a time in my life where I do need like, I don't know, like a ramp for my car or something, I might buy it. Like I literally might buy a new one because I just don't want it hanging around. If it does, you know, I don't know if you feel that way too. Like,
well, you can sell it or give it away to somebody else, and they're going to put more use into it.
Exactly.
So for like, hopefully it sparks them joy. You
no,
know?
for sure.
But for you, you don't need
it.
For
right now, I don't need it, and I need it so infrequently that the time I do, I either want to contact the guy who does have one,
Yeah.
or I want to buy a new one at that time, you know?
Yeah, so it's just being mindful of like what you buy, because
Sure.
if that's your habit, you're always gonna just like buy things and get rid of it, buy things, get rid of it. So,
Yeah. I think there's even a little bit of like a dopamine reaction to just purchasing things, right?
Of
Like,
course, yeah.
You know, so I think they're you know, that's not that I've ever really struggled with addiction, but you know, I think things to that vein could manifest in many ways, even just, you know, buying something very inexpensive from AutoZone, you know, like literally in many different people, including myself.
Yeah, so I'm that way with my home gym right now. Like I want to buy more stuff for my home gym. I want a nice, you know, rig and a rack and, you know, all these other things, but it's like, how much am I going to actually put it to use compared to what I have? Right. And I have enough dumbbells and weights where I haven't fully maxed it out yet. So my thing is, before I buy the next thing, I have to earn it. So I have to max out these 90-pound dumbbells that I have in every way possible.
I see.
I can fully exhaust myself with all of these.
Yeah, and you could work out. Like, I know my dad was a corrections officer, so he told me like when he was working in the jails, like guys would do full body workouts with bags of water.
Yeah, you don't need much.
You don't need much.
So
like
I have
one dumbbell and one kettlebell.
I've got a sandbag, I've got a pull-up station,
Yeah.
I've got a bench, I've got 2 sets of dumbbells that adjust to different weights. I'm fine with that. I have a sled too, which was like the excess purchase. I didn't need a sled. I don't use it as much, but it's there, and like I like to use it sometimes.
Sure. Well, there's got to be a little excess, you know.
So before I buy my next rig, it's like I have to make sure like I fully utilize.
You almost have to
everything.
be getting nothing out of that weight, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or not nothing, but like, okay, I literally need more weight because I'm not getting like the result I want.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is actually probably a good way to like live in general with like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like living like pretty minimalistly. You know, and like just buying a few things, but buying them like really well, like good quality.
I agree with that. That's like a lesson that came to me at some point recently. Even with just doing this podcast, like these microphones, right? Like this is like industry standard, probably best mic you could buy, right?
Yeah.
And I remember doing the podcast that I used to do before, it was the Needle Depth Tattoo podcast, and I had like, you know, some budget like mics, and I had to do so much post production and, you know, and all that stuff. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm sitting here zooming in on waveforms, trying to get rid of static. But all I needed to do was spend a few $100 more on this mic and literally have to do nothing, you know? It's just like a great lesson for me. It's like, why don't you just do everything quality from the beginning? Yeah.
And if you can't, whether it's by affordability or availability, then you make the most out of what you have. I remember when Napster was out, you know, and this was the era of like people just being able to like, you know, peer-to-peer share their music and stuff. And, you know, I would see just people making music with the regular like stick microphone. It was nothing crazy, but it was just like a $20.
I know the stick microphone.
Yeah, it's this
like
little
those
white
Dell standard stick, and it came with like this circle thing that it goes into.
Yeah,
and you can, like,
exactly.
You could
it's a little
it.
string that you just plug into the back of your computer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah, you didn't have the best audio, but when you're in the beginning, when you're in this stage of like creating something, anything, any camera can work. You can use your iPhone. You know?
Can.
And
you could start a podcast with your iPhone.
Tattooing's kind of the same way. Like any machine will work.
Sure.
You don't need to buy the best, the newest stuff. Like you can make it work.
If it goes up and down, I could probably do a tattoo with it.
That's right. But it's just a matter of like making do with what you have. And then if you have the ability to like upgrade, upgrade to the best stuff so that it can last longer and you're not in the stage of like constantly like buying and getting rid of.
Yeah, like future proofing. That's how I feel with like, because I'm into building computers and like all that kind of. I just love. I actually, believe it or not, I don't project myself as so much of like a tech guy. I think, but I'm really into tech, you know. And even with computer stuff, like you know, graphics cards and I made that mistake once when I built my first computer. I bought a graphics card that was like pretty good at the time, but then it's like, you know, in a year there was like 3 more better ones, and it's just like kind of like. Yeah, why don't I just buy like the best one at the time of purchase, and then and then there's like a few year lag until I have to upgrade, you know? And then you could actually resell that one at that time and kind of retain value. Yeah. Because it's still relevant for the person entering that's, you know, not buying the top one. But if you buy like that mid-grade one at first, it becomes like defunct by the time you're upgrading. Yeah. You know,
it just depends on what's important to you.
That's true.
If it's important and you have the means to get it, then that works out.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with it too, the means.
Yeah, we're very fortunate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I said that before. Like, you know, I think as you kind of become, you know, the more fortunate you are, the more clear that is. So anyway, So about your shop, you said you were doing mentoring programs there and stuff like that, or is that something you're still doing? Because I know you used to do like the one-on-one, right? Am I right?
Yeah. So I've done like mentorships and I've done coaching.
Coaching,
right?
okay.
So like mentorships is like with, tattoo base, and with the mentorships, I've done, I think this is the 12th one or the 11th or 12th one that I've done so far.
But it's in
And
more of like a class
It's in a
format.
group setting.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we do most of them online where like we get all the stuff out of the way with answering questions about, machine, equipment, needles, techniques, social media, business, everything. And then this last class that we did in person was in January, and we had 14 people fly in for 2 days, and we got to tattoo like synthetic skin in person.
Cool. So now that you have the space with your shop,
Yeah.
you have the you have more possibility with actually having a physical location to kind of like curate things like that.
Yeah. So we moved into the space November 1st, and then we didn't plan for it to line up that way, but November 1st was the start of like this 12-week program, and then we were able to like do it within the shop. And I was tattooing in there. We were streaming it through Zoom, and everyone can kind of watch, learn. It was 11 weeks where they all got to know each other and interact. And then by the time the 12th week came and they got to fly in, it was like old friends meeting up, and they were all tattooing together within the same space.
So it's a 12-week mentorship program
for that one. That's the only one that I've done for 12 weeks.
So you're still experimenting with like the perfect format.
Yeah, and I don't know if I do 12 weeks again, because I thought that was a steal, like as far as the information and the value and the pricing. That's what I would have signed up. So I'm creating programs of like, what would I sign up for? And we had a really good sign up rate, but I realized like for a lot of people, I was asking them for a full semester of commitment.
Yeah, like literally.
It was 3 months, once a week, to be able to learn. And a lot of people got amazing value out of it.
But you're saying it like, so now like it comes like you guys already are interacting online via Zoom, sharing things. And then it kind of comes to like this crescendo, and then you meet at your shop in person.
Yeah.
And it was like everyone already knows each other.
Yeah, it was great.
Like that.
It was
and they're
amazing.
applying the techniques that you like taught them all along, in person. It was probably cool for you to
It was
see.
really cool to do that, because that was the first time I got to meet all of them in the same time, and also to be able to do that within the space. But the mentorship program, it always takes a lot of energy and time. Plus I'm tattooing, and then I'm also like building the shop, and I'm trying to like get the business format and the structure going. So between November and March, we had to do the mentorship program. I had to like finish the build out for the shop, get the grand opening going. And then like once the grand opening was done, my energy was tapped, So like now I'm at this place of, I have my second baby coming, and he's going to be here like in a few weeks.
Wow.
So June 1st is like due date. Second half of May is when we're expecting. And it's like, I'm now in like nesting mode of like getting the house ready, because when the baby comes, like my wife is out of commission. Like she's not going to be, doing much.
And your wife is the manager of the studio.
Yeah.
Correct?
So she's going to be taking time off, and, she's going to need time to recover.
So who will fill that demanding role?
So then that's where I step in. So
Okay.
like part of being a business owner is you kind of have to wear multiple shoes depending on the time.
Sure.
And, we're a small business. So I have to learn the part that I didn't want to do. So this goes back to kind of what we were saying earlier. Like the things that I don't want to do, like we'll find somebody who can do it really well and who enjoys it. But now that she has her time off, I'm not going to hire somebody to replace her.
No, you're going to take the opportunity to learn it yourself.
Yeah. So now like I care enough about my business.
Yeah,
I'm going to like learn all those things that were once not fun to learn about, taxes and payroll and all these other things, but I'll learn it so that she's able to take the time off and business can still run.
And even just say you do have to delegate such work at some point for whatever reason it may be. You have an education and understanding of it so much so that you know what to expect from someone doing it.
Yeah. Well, the idea is like you want to be able to know like how your business runs, or at least to be able to create a booklet or some sort of guide to be able to like pass that information on to someone else, whether it's the consultant role, assistant, or the business manager. Like you want to be able to like train that role and have like everything in place for the next person. Yeah.
And like it like whatever may arise at the end of the day, if you know how to do it, then it could, if someone's not there to do it, at least you always have the fallback of you doing it.
Absolutely.
But as like we said before, like you almost by force, you're kind of forced to learn,
Yeah.
like maybe by circumstance, I should say.
Well, we'd rather do that, and what we would consider a terminology would be like peace terms, right? So like peace and war. we'd rather learn these things like while we're in peace
During
times,
peace. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Instead of like a war. So
Yeah,
like
for sure.
We're very realistic in the sense of like anything can happen to anybody at any time. Right. So if something happens to my wife, how does business operate?
Right.
If something happens to me, can Upside still operate? If something happens to the consultant or to another artist, are we going to be okay?
Yes.
And that's the thing is like, I want Upside to be able to still run without me or somebody else in place.
Absolutely.
To create the business to like sustain itself, because I'd hate for something to happen to me. And what happens to the other artists now? Like, did they still have a place to work? Did they have to like go figure it out afterwards?
No, I couldn't agree more, man. Because I'm literally learning how to edit video,
Yeah.
And I don't know that I want to be a video editor, but at the end of the day, I can run this podcast by myself.
Yeah.
I know how to edit. I know how to, balance audio, lighting. And then it's like, from this point forward, I would like to maybe hire people to do that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I have first a vision that I created by me organically doing it.
Yeah.
And then also if, the person who I, assigned to do that task can no longer, at least I know I can still keep the show going forward by, via me doing it,
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool and like a really like awesome business, tactic or whatever,
Well, it's nice to know like how every part of the machine works, so like even if you're working at a restaurant, to know like how it works from dishes all the way to the busboy to the waiter to the up top, like to be a good business owner, like to know all those things is great. And the same thing for you, like by the time you hire somebody, you've been there with the video editing and everything, so like you have your ideas, your input, instead of just coming off like not knowing anything.
I almost think it's essential to a successful business. I worked at an Italian Sala Maria, as they call it there, a very like it was like a high-end catering and Italian deli in New Jersey, and it's kind of where I think I got my work ethic from, really, because when I was a tattoo apprentice, I was always thinking like, hey, no one's in the shop now. Like we should sweep. We should, wipe this down. We should do, because, there was like those restaurant. It's like I always think people should work in a restaurant at some point in their life. I have like a weird theory
good skill
about
sets
that.
there.
It is, because there's like this fast moving, like if you're not doing, like say you're the one who's preparing like the salads or you're the one doing this. If you don't have a task at the moment, then you got to hop into somebody else's task. It's like, it's a machine that's running. And so my old boss, Anthony there, he was big on that, and I remember, if somebody would call out of work, he'd be washing dishes and the guy owns the place. You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes you just have to step in as the business owner and take on whatever role is necessary. And just, I think the humility and like just being humble enough to do that too is like, there's really something to be said about a successful business in that sense as well,
Yeah, it's like we're not above all the tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to do all of it.
You're just trying to delegate your energy efficiently so that you can run a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I'd rather not be doing dishes.
Absolutely.
I'd rather not be doing.
And I don't think him either.
Yeah. But if it came to it, like we know how to do it,
and you know how, and you will. Yeah.
The idea is to grow to a point where like you can have enough people and backups in place to take care of all of those things, but in the meantime, while you're this growing small business, like you have to do all the parts.
Yeah. And just the willingness to want to do it, I think is like something profound in itself. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where I think some, maybe some can go wrong, like, like thinking that, you're going to skip a step or, or whatever,
Yeah, I've worked in my first job was at Subway sandwiches. So like the first job title was like a sandwich artist, and then just learning like how to prep and do everything behind the scenes, and you realize like how much work it takes to actually get the sandwich to the customer. Yeah. Then I worked at Forever 21, a clothing company, and it was just like doing everything from stock to cashier to assistant manager to co-manager, and like doing all these parts. You see what it takes to like get everything to open the door to the clients.
I think people who don't work behind the scenes for particular, things like that don't really understand what goes into anything, I have a friend that I went to high school with. His name is Gasper, and he is one of the editors on the show American Idol. And he was showing me like, we go on Discord together and like, we'll share, because now that I'm doing this video editing, I would contact him for some advice or, tips or whatever. And he was showing me like the edits that go into American Idol, and he showed me one of the cuts he made as like an intro, and like literally just when the show starts, like this profound intro and like, kind of recapping everyone. It's like this like 3-minute intense like intro, and he said it's going to be consumed by 8 million viewers.
Yeah.
And he's been working on it for like 9 days, grueling. And it's just like 3 minutes, just, or not even 30 seconds potentially, just zooms by, and someone just sitting on their couch, you know, like eating Doritos, watching it. Like he was like, he's been here stressing, cutting this, you know, computer freezing, rebooting this. And, and he was showing me the inner workings, man, layers, like,
you realize how much work it takes.
Yeah, and just to expand on what you're saying, you know?
It's the reason why I sit through the credits at the end of movies.
Sure.
We just went to see the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah, I saw the preview for that.
I like sitting there through the end, and you know, we're not going to read everything, but occasionally you take a look, and you know, you see some names and some roles, and you realize like how much energy and time it takes to create, you know, something like this.
Right.
So yeah, I just like being able to like know like the underworkings of like how things go.
And actually to expand on that more, like even just opening this small studio actually gained like a mega appreciation for anyone who owned a tattoo studio that I've ever worked at. So like, for example, I spent a lot of my years tattooing like with a, you know, like a small chip on my shoulder. Like sometimes like, you know, why am I paying this percent, or why am I doing that? Or, you know, and I think rightfully so. I think it's just like, and I say rightfully so in the sense that I think it's more just like where I was at mentally. Yeah. And my lack of maybe experience in that topic. But after doing this, it's like you start to see like, you know, to bring it up again, the back end, like, well, you know, what you might be paying for is the fact that that person, you know, waited online at the town hall, or filled out hundreds of papers, or, you know, went and sat at an insurance agency and talked to a guy, you know, and had to make this phone call, and was like needed to go do something with his family, but no, he had to, you know, he's on the phone coordinating like the health inspect, you know, whatever. Like there's just
anything and everything involved with it.
So I think for me, like a beautiful life experience, and just even opening up my humble little place, was like just to kind of have insight into that end of things. And then I think that kind of just translates, like you said, into everything. It's like, why am I paying so much money for this high-end restaurant? Like it's just shrimp. Well, I don't know. You know, it's seasoned so perfectly. Maybe that chef spent time in France, like understanding about this seasoning, and, you know, took the time to learn to, like, you know, preheat it to only this temperature because, you know, he was hanging out with another good chef. There's like literally like, you know, countless back end things that go into anything.
Yeah, it's like if you do any task, right? Someone who's really well experienced in something, like they can do it in a very short period of time. They can do it very efficiently. You're not paying them for their time or the product, but it's for all the years of experience on like how to get there, like all the fuck ups along the way, all the trial and error, the learning, the investment into, you know, getting to that particular place where someone is able to, you know, fix something with your AC unit, you know, within a short period of time. But you can pay much less for somebody who just started, and you're going to end up problem after problem. And it's the same thing with tattoos.
Yes.
Like you can pay very little for it, and you can pay a lot. And pricing isn't always correlated to the quality of service or the experience, but it's sometimes an indicator of like, you know, what it takes to, you know, get a job done well.
Yeah, I think if you combine what you can literally see with your eyes versus the price, you could kind of deduce, you know, maybe what you're about to get yourself into.
It's also like, you know, we do a lot of consultations, and some people look and they think like, well, that price is too high. Doesn't matter what the price is. To some person, your price is too high.
Always been.
Yeah.
I was talking to Mark Wade about that. Like, I remember when I was starting out in tattooing, and I hit a point where I was gaining a little traction, you know, and I started charging $800 per day. And for me, that was like a lot of money. You know, I was a kid working at a deli in New Jersey. I started tattooing, did my apprenticeship, you know, charging, you know, a couple $100 here, hot bologna sandwich and a beer here. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to a firm $800 per day, you know? And I remember, wow. And I remember like emailing someone and saying like, hi, I charge a flat day rate of $800, and then writing back to me like, that's absolutely insane. You know, like it's just like, you know, and that happened at $800 a day. That happened at $1,000 a day. That happened at $1,200 a day. Yeah. Right.
You'll find your crowd again of people who like appreciate your work and your value. And I think that's why our prices are the way that they are. It's like you find a group of people who value you for your work, your ethics, your personality, your atmosphere, everything. And they're willing to go through that for the experience that they're getting. And you have to deliver on that.
Sure.
And that requires like all of your time and energy to like give them the best experience and the best tattoo in service possible.
Absolutely.
You owe it to them to do that.
Yeah, no, I know. It's funny how many people I tattoo, like even in here, and they walk in and they're like, wow. I notice it, like, you know, sometimes most people, when I bring them into this studio, they're like, wow. They're like, this is cool. But I do notice I tattoo a lot of people that like align with me in the sense, like, a lot of times they listen to the same music, you know, they're into the same type of, like, maybe video games or whatever. And I try to just put myself into my space, like, as much like you. And I see it, you know, I see it come back, and I see the people like understand that, you know, it's cool.
Everything has to line up from the moment they reach out to you for the consultation to like when they come see the space and to the tattoo and the follow-up and whatever else. Like, they will see all of those things and it'll make sense. And then that's what'll determine whether they come back to you or not.
Yes.
You know, and if it doesn't make sense, if you can't deliver that value to them, then it's just like too expensive, not worth it, won't come back. You know, so yeah, it's just always like figuring out like what can you do to make.
How do you feel about
better?
that? How do you feel about that? Like, in the sense of like, because I've definitely had, like, you know, in my tattoo career, people not return, and sometimes I feel like it's mutual. Like, have you ever felt like that too?
Sometimes there's different reasons. I've had clients get married or get divorced. You know, they can't afford it. They buy a house, they move. People die.
Oh, yes.
They don't come back. Also, they just may not. You know, they just may not be able to afford it or come back at the time. So, yeah, I have pieces that aren't done. I don't know what the reasons are for them not coming back, but
well, not even so much that. I'm talking about like when literally somebody like doesn't come back, and it's not for one of those reasons, but maybe because they just didn't align. Have you ever had that happen that you know?
That's been that way. And sometimes like I don't align with them.
That's what I mean.
And I won't get them back in for, you know, to do their next piece or something.
Because you chose.
Yeah.
So okay, so I'm not the only. I'm sure we're not the only two either, but
No, because it's a collaboration effort. You know, like they're finding you, you're agreeing to do the work or not, and we get to do this thing that we love every day. And it's like, why do you is it worth it to put up with this person? And sometimes it is because of the design, or it's the money, or it's the convenience, whatever it is. Like, you may be willing to take it on for a reason, but for the most part, at least me, I'm at this place where like if it takes more energy out of me than it gives me, and if I can't give them that energy back, or if I can't give them a great experience and a positive vibe, it's not fair to them. You know? So I'd rather like not continue that, because like I don't want to have to sit there with feelings, you know, about their personality and their experience that's going to be here. Like, they deserve the best. They deserve somebody who's excited for them. It's not going to be me today.
Well, I agree with you 110%. But it kind of, to take it back to like what we were saying before, if it doesn't spark joy, sometimes I feel like I apply that to my tattoo process as well. Like, if I don't feel in alignment with what I'm doing or who I'm working with or whatever, you know, obviously, like, and respectfully so, there'll be times when I'm just like, I'm just not the guy, you know. Even if I had done a piece on somebody, like I try to be, you know, firm enough on like taking care of myself, you know, to relate it back to like self-care. Like for me, I don't have good feelings, and whatever that may be. Sometimes I don't even go deep enough to analyze it. I just know that I don't feel good about it, and I don't want to be involved, you know?
Yeah. There's been times where like there are things that I don't want to do, and now I want to do them. For example, like I'm doing my landscaping now. Because I have the time and the energy to do it. But before it's just like
your actual landscaping of like your house?
Of my house, yeah.
Cool.
And before it's just like I don't have the time, I don't have the energy and the willingness to learn about it. I don't care. I'll pay somebody else to do it. And I do have somebody who still does like the regular mowing and the leaf blowing, like
the maintenance.
Yeah, the maintenance of it. But again, getting ready for this baby, and now that the shop's done, like I've been wanting to work on, you know, redoing the plants in the front of the house. I'm laying down mulch, and I'm, you know, cultivating.
But it's almost to me like painting.
It's a form of like care, therapy. It's showing, again, it's going back to what we're saying. Like, if you care enough about your thing, your house, your property, you know, your experience living there, then like you're going to want to do it, or at least pay somebody to do it. But I like being hands-on and doing things like that now, because I have the ability and the time to do that. it feels good. You know, it's very rewarding to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would
I
imagine
care
that
enough about it.
It's
now.
gratifying. I mean, you're
Yeah.
literally like, think about the term landscape. Like, you're literally scaping the land of your domain. Like, I mean, it almost kind of comes off to me like, you know, think of if you were like a king in like a castle and there's a moat around it. Like, this is your place. I mean, you know, I'm talking to a guy here who, you know, was telling me before that you don't want to wear shoes and, you know, bring, you know, bacteria into your home via, you know, shoes.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it just makes good sense to me that you would want to like curate your land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of cool. Like,
Well, you want it to also look nice, you know?
yeah,
And like
I agree with that. It's like
I'm just learning now, like, which parts of my backyard have weeds in them. And we have like these giant 6-foot stalks that like, they look like trees.
Yeah,
but it's like, oh, these are weeds. You know, nobody told me. I didn't grow up in a house, you know, with weeds. I grew up in apartment buildings. You know, when I lived in Vegas, it was like desert landscaping.
So let's talk about that.
Now
for a
I'm
minute.
learning about all these different things, and it's good to know.
Because I met you in New York when we were working at Love Machine together, and I knew of you, you know. So you grew up in New York and then moved to Vegas, and then you came back to New York.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York. I moved when I was 22 in Vegas to go work with my brother Robert Pho.
Okay.
So I learned, like, I did my apprenticeship there.
That's
then,
where you learned.
Yeah,
tattoo.
and then I tattooed there for about like 9 years. We parted ways, and then in 2020 I moved back to New York. And
that's when we met.
Yeah, and then when I moved to New York, I was trying to figure out, like, well, where do I go? And we thought about staying in New York, but just with, you know, the traffic and everything else, the energy of it, I was like, I wanted to go somewhere else. So I stayed there for about like a year, and we worked at Love Machine together, and, you know, came out to Austin. And like my first day, I was stand-up paddleboarding on Lady Bird Lake. I was like, this is the right amount of city. This is the right amount of nature.
Yeah,
like,
man.
this is perfect out here. Plus the location being central to the U.S. and like all the major like Texan cities. Like, it was a great place for us to settle. And then looking at schools and cost of living and everything else, like, this is where we wanted to be.
Yeah, you just answered the next 5 questions I had for you.
Like, why here? Yeah.
No, I mean, because I couldn't agree more. I mean, you have a cultivation of art here. You have amazing restaurants. You have, I mean, there's nothing more important to me in my life than stand-up comedy. I mean, they're calling it the new stand-up comedy capital of the world. I love live music. There's the proper balance of city. If the city falls off real quick and gets, you know, chill, like very fast. I have quick access to like a lake where I can paddleboard, I can kayak. My wife is a runner. So we have this like inside joke, because when she was first moving here, one of her friends was like, well, you know, who are you going to run with when you move? And now my wife every day just sends me pictures of her running with like 500 people. And she's like, and she'll put in quotes, who are you going to run with? There's like immense amounts of run groups.
Yeah.
My wife has more friends here than she did after living in New Jersey for like 35 years. You know, like, it's just, there's people here all looking to make friends with each other, because a lot of them moved here and kind of are in the same position. You know, there's you know, I'm in a building just full of creatives. You know, you're here, you doing your thing. You know, there's just, you know, you go out west, you have hill country. Like, it's to me, it's great. And not to mention, like you said, the geographic positioning. I mean, from the West Coast, East Coast, you're equidistant. The North, it's cool.
Well, it wasn't my first choice.
Okay,
right?
so what was your first choice?
We were in New York, and we were like, where do we want to settle? Right? We knew we were going to open a shop. We knew we wanted to like buy a house and, you know, raise a family. So my daughter, she was like 2 or 3 at the time, and like she's getting ready for school. So it's like we wanted to just pick a place. We listed all the major cities in the U.S. and we were going to
like all of them. Like, you went down a list of just
you know, Denver, San Diego, Miami,
all the possibilities,
San Francisco, Portland. Like, we named, you know, everywhere, and then we started to like taper off, like knock things off the list. I didn't want to go
so you were
places,
just eliminating them, like, one.
I didn't want to go places where it was cold. My wife didn't want to go to Florida, and, you know, we were just like seeing where
I wanted to go to Florida. My wife didn't want to go to Florida. Florida was my first choice, actually. My wife was like, nope. And you want to know why? Because she has curly hair, and she said that she's going to be dealing with frizz.
Oh, okay. I mean, hey, that's very important to her.
But it is. So it actually really
make
is.
A decision,
and you're
based
right.
off of that.
No, it totally was.
So then my wife's parents said, have you considered Texas? I was like, well, what's out there? She has
Were they living here already?
No, they're back in New York also.
Oh.
So my wife has a cousin in Houston. I've been to the Dallas Tattoo Expo, and my wife knows of Austin for the music scene.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, like, I'll go explore Austin. The idea for me was to do a mini TV show, you know,
I
like
remember.
almost on YouTube.
I remember.
Yeah.
You did like a burger challenge.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So we hired a videographer and we were going to go to like all these cities and like look up the culture, look up the restaurants, look up commercial and residential real estate. And we were just going to do a whole series on it. We only did one series on Austin. And I was like, I reported back, like, I loved it here.
Yeah.
So had my wife come out. She came out like 3 times. I came out 6 times. And then like, that was it. We didn't look any further.
Well, I think you did a lot of the research for me because I came out twice and my wife came out once.
Yeah. I'll tell you about all the stuff. Here's why
You were,
I want to
'cause
be here.
You were coming back to New York and reporting live to me.
Uh-huh.
You know?
And then second place would have been San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. Seattle was pretty close up there just because we have some friends up there also.
Okay.
But just the cost of living at the time was really good.
Now
After that everything just skyrocketed.
Everything skyrocketed here.
Yeah.
And probably went down in Seattle. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the market yet.
But everything else about it so far, like we've been out here 2 years and we love it. So we're going to be here for a while, especially with Upside.
Yeah. Because you just, obviously just invested in this beautiful state-of-the-art shop.
Yeah.
And, another kid on the way. Right?
Yeah.
You bought a house, so you're out here. You're grounded here for a bit.
Well, I really like the Lake Travis area. So the idea is at some point get some land there, then live on one side and work on the other.
Right.
You know, and then that's really good. I think that's what's going to take Upside to another level, which is like now we get to like be immersed in nature.
Oh, like
so,
opening a second location that way.
Yeah. And then
cool.
that's where I'd be. So live and work in the same area.
Yeah, cool. So like, because your shop is located in Hutto, right? Which is a suburb just north of Austin.
Yeah.
And you live in Round Rock.
Yeah.
Correct? So how far is your commute now?
It's 10 minutes.
Oh,
and I'm on 2 major streets. So like I go one way, I turn and go this way, and then I turn and
I've been to your house, and then I've been to your studio as well.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think in relation. It's so close, 10 minutes. Yeah.
The idea for me was I wanted my commute as short as possible. So we first looked within a 3-mile range, and there was no spaces available. No landlords wanted a tattoo shop that was available yet. So then we increased it to like 4, 5, 6 miles. And the next one was this beautiful brand new building construction.
I remember
nothing on the inside.
when I first visited Austin, when you had just moved here, and you showed me around. You showed me the location when you were like when it was like purely like it was still kind of under construction.
The ceiling was all exposed. It was just concrete.
Yeah,
but
you brought me there.
Yeah, it was just a big unit that was empty.
Yeah.
So that place was available. And apparently this little city called Hutto is one of the fastest growing cities.
Yeah, because you have a lot of tech shit going on up there, right? It's not far from the Tesla factory. And all that.
Well, yeah, that's right up the 45. But Samsung is moving out that way.
Still, it's
so
all expanding out here, man.
Everything's growing out there. So
I know that.
I only chose that location. And people ask, like, why here? Why Hutto? Right? As if it's like, what's the secret to Hutto? Like, it was just close to home. I just needed it to be that short of a commute because I didn't want to spend my time driving 30 plus minutes because I can value that time. I can do something else with that 1 hour plus a day.
I remember when you were commuting in New York and you were telling me like that because you were doing the mentoring programs and you're like, I have like the aforementioned 45-minute commute you were talking about. Yeah. You were like, that's when I, call.
Oh, yeah.
You were using like your car time.
I would do some mentorship calls in the car. So I love my Tesla because I can just put it in autopilot and then I would just, be on the phone and I can call and I can look through their tattoo work and give them constructive criticism and feedback on their work. So even those drives, I need to make the most out of that time.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, maybe it's listening to an audiobook.
Which I actually I should say envied or got inspired from you in a sense, like, cause I would be driving home, like, listening to a podcast or like sometimes even just in silence. And I would always wonder like, hey, should I use this time more valuably like Andy does? Cause like, I still think about this today. It's funny, like the little impacts that you probably are unaware that you might have on people. And I'm sure I do the same to others in ways, but like, it's funny. Like even just this week was probably thinking like, oh, like, should I be doing something during this time because you said that, it's
I don't like wasting time, and wasting time is like, it's subjective.
Right. Well, think of the John Lennon quote, right? Like time that you enjoyed wasting wasn't wasted.
It's not wasted. Yeah.
So that's like kind of where I fall sometimes. Cause I'm like, maybe I need this time in my car just in silence to get right.
And that is a perfectly good use of time. Right.
Right.
So
yeah.
For me, like, I'm enjoying the landscaping right now. I want to do that. I don't feel like
but
I'm
that's where you
wasting
might
time.
get that recharging, like kind of.
To some people, that's not the best use of time because
yeah.
they would be doing other things.
Yeah.
But for me, like, that's what I want to do. I will wake up early and I want to do this. This is part of my reset and taking care of my family and my house. Like, I want to do that.
And you'll do that early morning.
Yeah. So that's what I want to do. And at some point, painting or working out or whatever it is, like, I have to, like, it has to contribute to my energy. And if it's not, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think it might even just be as simple as that, right? Like, does this add to my energy?
Yeah.
Or does this subtract to my energy? And let's gravitate towards the things that add to it, right?
Always.
Because I'm going to say this now. Like, for example, I'm not a morning person, right? And like, and it's not like I'm just sitting here saying I'm not a morning person as like a defense mechanism, right? Like, I'm not a morning person because I'm lazy or whatever. Like, I've sat here and tried, and I've run it through my systems. Am I just lazy? And I've tried it 100 times, waking up in the morning. I literally function better late at night, like, and
That's okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said right there, that's okay, was the hardest thing for me to say to myself. You know what I mean? And I think that as I get older, I'm starting to accept that, like, maybe that is just who I am, and that is okay.
It's not what time you wake up. It's like, what are you doing with the time that you are awake?
Right.
So, like,
exactly.
You don't have to. And I've gone through all wake up hours. I used to think 6 o'clock was early, and I would wake up and I would paint, and I'd feel like, wow, I'm up before the sun. I'm up before people. And then it became 5, became 4, 3:45.
But you still have the same amount of hours.
And I got up to like 2:45 at one point. And like, I could get a lot done in those morning hours because it's like, it's grind time. It's time to go, and I'm awake. Why I ended up changing my wake up time was my daughter. She was into shooting Polaroids, instant photos. She has a photo album. There are so many pictures of me sleeping in the play area, and I didn't like that. Like, she found that funny, and she would take a picture, and I would wake up and there's me just like slumped over. And I realized, like, I was getting tired while driving. I was getting tired while tattooing. So, like, while I could do more things, waking up earlier and sleeping less, the things that I was doing wasn't with enough energy.
So then, no, 100%. But now take me through, what time is your wake up time?
It's 5:30 now.
5:30. And you found that works best for you and your circumstances.
And I had to be okay with saying 5:30 is early.
Yeah.
Right? Because how I use my time, I need 8 hours of sleep.
Sure.
Otherwise, like, I'm falling asleep.
I'm finding this now too.
So 5:30 I wake up. I can get to my garage gym, which I don't have to commute for, whether it's 10 minutes, 4 minutes. Like, I get right to my garage and I can work out for an hour. Then I can meditate for 10 minutes, and then I wake my daughter up for school, and I can drive her to school within like 10 minutes.
Right.
Then I get back home, and then I can get ready for work.
And then you got your 10-minute commute to work, and then you work for however many hours.
Yeah. So and then when I get home, I'm in bed by like 8:30, maybe 9:30
at night.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think for me, it's just accepting, like, I think it's almost just a system and like what works good for you.
Yeah.
So like me, I don't have kids, right? So it's like, I don't need to be up with my kid. I don't need to accommodate a school or a drop off. So it's like, why do I need, like, for example, my wife goes to bed at 9 at night because she wakes up very early and runs, right? So it's like, I actually find like solace in this time. Like, she's sleeping, the dog is sleeping with her. Yeah. Now it's like, I have this, like,
now that's your alone time.
Yeah.
Versus for me, I have to do that in the morning.
Yeah.
Before anyone else.
And that
is
don't
up.
Start for me till 10 at night. You know what I mean? So now it's like, and then it's like, and it's not that they're a burden. It's just like, literally, I can get in touch with myself and, maybe smoke a little weed, drink a little whiskey, whatever, whatever I want to do, put on some music in my office and start, editing video, creating designs for my tattoos. And then my work doesn't start till 12 or 1. So it's like, well, then if I get into this flow and a zone at that time, and sometimes I just roll with the flow, sometimes the flow doesn't end. Like, sometimes it's 3 a.m. and I'm like really starting to get into what I'm doing. And it's like, well, I don't need to wake up until 10:30 to get to work on time. It's 3. I could still get, 7.5 hours of sleep now. So it's like, I just take kind of what's given. Yeah. With that being said, I feel like if we, were to have a kid or something like of that nature, I do feel like I'm adaptable enough of a person that then I would just, like kind of like what you were saying, I would just make it work for my circumstances currently.
You have to always adjust, and that's the thing. Like when your life circumstances change, you have to adapt with it also. So now that I open a shop, like I can't tattoo as many days because I have to do other things alongside with the
just
business.
to keep the shop running.
Yeah. So just like
just the reality of what's given.
Yeah. And then now that I have a kid that's in school, like right now I've almost got a really good rhythm. I know it's going to be thrown out the window once the second baby comes because like he may be on a completely different
whole new dynamic.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. You don't even know your kid yet, literally. Like,
And then it's going to change when my daughter goes from, preschool to like kindergarten to elementary school. So
and then her workload will increase as far as like school goes and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I'm going to want to be there for a certain, whatever the things are.
There's going to be like plays maybe and dance recital.
So
who knows?
I have to adjust accordingly and that's okay. So having that flexibility is the freedom that I'm looking for.
Yeah, not what the flexibility is.
Yeah.
It's just the flexibility.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah. So it's just important to just make sure like, is whatever you're doing, do you have enough energy to do all of it, and do it well? And what's even harder is taking things off of my want to do list off, because I'm not going to be able to do it really well. So I want to do a lot of things.
Wait, say that again. Things that you want.
I have a want to do list. I want to do a lot of things.
It's these things that you're not currently doing that you eventually want to do. So you're saying you want to reduce that list to things you value.
I have to because I realize I can't do all these things well. Right? I'm gonna be half-assing
because it's already so much. It's already so much as it is what you're saying.
I have a piano at my house that I really want to learn, but I don't want to learn it enough to like take time away from all the other things.
And then you're not going to have the time to dedicate to, because we were talking before, like everything you do, you want to do entirely and you want to do with high quality. Yeah. So because you can't allot that time to it, then it's like, well, you're not going to do it like for 10 minutes a week crappily. You're either going to do it or you're not.
So, for example, when I was in New York, I was running every day. I was doing like 5K a day every day.
Yeah, I remember.
I was cycling to work 4 times a week. And I was also doing jiu-jitsu 4 days a week. And I loved it. I loved all parts of it. But I realized like I had no time for art. I wasn't developing my art any further. I wasn't spending a lot of time like designing as much as I used to. So then I was like, I can't do all these things. I think it kind of worked out in my favor that my trainer lost his gym. So I didn't do jiu-jitsu anymore. I reached 1,000 miles of cycling, so I got into a car. That was my goal. I was gonna bike 1,000 miles before I got my next car. So then I took that off my list.
Actually.
Yeah.
Did you not? You did complete that goal.
Yeah. I got to the Tesla dealership with 1,001 miles.
Yeah, because you said to me, you said I'm buying a Tesla, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, why? Like buying, or are you gonna go buy it today? And you're like, no. I have a goal.
I'm biking to the delership.
You said I have a goal and I need to ride 1,000. But when you first told me about this, you might have only been like a couple hundred miles in. So I remember like specifically knowing about this like goal. And so then you were like, okay, I'm gonna get my Tesla when I hit the 1,000-mile mark. And then I just remember when you rolled up with the Tesla. In fact, I remember the first time you went on like a further drive when we were in Maryland. Remember you took the Tesla to the house. It was like the first time
first time I did a long distance trip in the snow, and like
you were probably excited to take that thing out.
I was, but I also learned like Teslas aren't good for long road trips.
Yeah. So. I learned too, because you might have been the first person I known who had one. And you were like, I needed to charge for 45 minutes halfway, and I'm like, oh damn, man, I just stopped and grabbed a bag of beef jerky and filled up.
So that's one of the best things about like just having a gas car. So we do have a gas car, and
so you have multiple cars in your family. You have the Tesla.
My wife has a car, then I have a car.
Okay. So I always felt, in my opinion, that Tesla is a cool vehicle, but I think it would be perfect as like a second vehicle.
It's a great car for commuting.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't be my primary.
When you're calculated your mileage, like I need to get to my work every day for 20 miles.
It's like a phone. I just plug it in at the end of the day, and it's back
right. But you do, like, you would say you do need like a secondary vehicle in your like house.
No, you don't need it.
I mean, it would be ideal, I should say.
Not even.
But you don't even need anything.
Are you okay with sitting for 35 to 40 minutes charging your car when you're doing a road trip?
Yeah, and I guess that's circumstantial, because that could be when someone answers emails or whatever.
Yeah. So
me, probably not okay with it, but I don't have a Tesla.
I'd rather not sit in one place, just idle. I'd rather just be able to fill up and then just go.
Right. Yeah. So if you were going on a long road trip, wouldn't be your weapon of choice per se?
No, not at all. I would carry a weapon. So while I'm idle,
I do carry a weapon. That's why I moved to Texas.
It's a great place to be.
Although, I mean, in Austin, I don't know how confident I am about that, but yeah, I still carry it.
Yeah. But going back, like that's like I was doing all those things and I had to like take them off of my list of like to do. Like I love cycling, but I don't love it as much.
Okay.
And then
so you're prioritizing your love for your want list.
Yeah. So there's like I need to do these and I want to do lists. And then I felt the need to run. So I was running so much. I ran like 550Ks in 1 year.
Wow.
And I got to this place where I was contemplating like running 100 miles, running across the US. And like I was studying these people who are doing like 40 miles a day running over 75 days. And I was like, when do I do this? And I was like, I'm literally running from other things that I could be doing. And I was
like literally.
Yeah. And I was training with Mark, right? So Mark was getting into like fitness. And
by the way, I feel kind of bad. One day he was here and he was like, you know, oh, I'm going to work out with Andy at like, you know, 5:30 in the morning or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, hey, Mark, I'm going to go run over to Nickel City and, you know, drink some whiskey. And he's like, oh, I got to wake up in the morning. And then I was like, no, do whatever you want to do. And then we wound up having a glass of whiskey.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I texted Andy and I told him I can't make it. And I was like, yeah, but, you know, but I just felt bad. I was like, man, I don't mean to be a bad influence. Not to interrupt what you're saying.
No, that's how it goes. You know,
but it's how it goes.
He chose his priority for that day.
But he had full intentions. We were grooving. We were having a nice conversation.
That's all good. No, you guys had a good time.
We did. But I will say to go further what you were saying about wait, what the fuck what were you just talking about?
I was talking about like I was running every day and I ended up running from I was literally running from something. So I was training with Mark and Mark was getting me like into like painting.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
So then I was
so
just
Mark got you into the painting.
Yeah. So he got me into painting. And then me and him were supposed to do a 50K. It was going to be his first one.
Wait. I just thought of what I was going to say.
Go for it.
When I did the podcast with Mark, I referred to you as Tattooing's David Goggins.
Tattooing David Goggins.
But that's because at the time you were running so much. I was
running a lot.
Yeah. But if there was anyone in the tattoo industry that I felt was like the David Goggins, was you. And I was like, I was joking because he said, yo, yeah, I got to go work out with Andy at like 5 a.m. And I was like, yeah,
I love him because he'll always join in.
Who, Mark?
Yeah, he'll always join in for a workout. And
you almost tempted me. I was almost telling him the one time I should just go and just like stop being a fucking soft.
That's simply how it is when people come hang out or they want to visit for a little bit. It's like, we'll get a workout in. It's like,
I kind of want to come one day just for the fuck of it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I did that run with you that one time.
Oh, at Love Machine.
Yeah, I wasn't even like a runner. I didn't even run for a minute in the last 3 years, and I just came because I was like, whatever.
Yeah, no, that was a great time.
I'm not like against that stuff. Like I grew up playing sports and you know spent times in shape and out of shape. So like I will go run or work out.
We were just on lunch break. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna go for a run.
But you were running. I remember in the breaks. In the middle of your.
It was a lunch break.
That's why I was like, this guy is hardcore. It's like to me, like, you know, every time I see your stories, you're lifting sandbags, working out at 5:30 in the morning.
And it's one of those things like if I'm gonna get into it, like I wanna, and I know myself, like I wanna put my time and energy into it. So
and I appreciate the shit out of that. I like that.
So me and Mark, we were gonna do a 50K, and I was like, you know what? How about instead of doing a 50K, we paint for like 7 hours?
Wow. Like is that like a duration that it takes to do a 50K?
Yeah. So it was gonna be like 6 hours with him. Maybe it would be like 6-7 hours. So for us, it was like, wow, we've never done that before. And again, we tattoo for 8+ hours a day. So like doing art for that long is not hard.
I want to do that.
It was the first time we committed to painting for that long time. We're doing some sort of art. So he said, okay. So we bet at the same time. It was like 4 a.m. and we went till like 11 in the morning. And I did
painting.
Yeah, I did this giant pastel Mewtwo, you know, drawing. He started this lion, you know, with lightning bolts going through it. And when we finished, we were like, this was awesome. We should do this again.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? If I put the same energy into painting that I did into running or cycling, I would take my art to the next level. And that's what I did. I spent the next year like just waking up 6 a.m. early, and I was spending at least an hour every day like studying colors, anatomy, like all these different things, so that like I could start to like draw, because I was like, I'm not creative, I can't draw my own stuff. But I just didn't spend enough time to study that thing.
When you say you're not creative, what do you mean?
Well, I couldn't draw my own stuff. I would always look at artists who can draw, and I would think this was like this magical thing, that they were visionaries, like.
But they just put the time.
Yeah. They were like, they can like come up with creatures and landscapes and like create these whole things. Like, how did they do that? But I just realized, oh, these guys have been doing it for a long time. And willingly, they wanted to. They loved it. They put the time and energy and love into like studying these different aspects of it. That now that's just what they do naturally. Yeah.
So it's like lifting, right?
Yeah.
The more time you do bicep curls, maybe the bigger your biceps will get.
Now it's the same thing with like just drawing. Right? You can just do one thing over and over, but it's like if you start to understand like the whole realm of what it means to draw or to lift weights, you'll be more knowledgeable, and like you can expand from bicep curls to just 2B pencils. You can figure out like all the other blending tools.
But with that being
papers.
said, there's somebody who's born with good physical genetics, right?
To a degree, but you still have to be willing to like develop it, because like,
well, it's like Michael Jordan, right?
But no, Michael Jordan had like a serious work ethic to like develop his skill set.
This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had a severe work ethic and was, probably regarded as the best basketball player, I think, inarguably, because I'm from that era. But he worked like a maniac, right? But do you think that if you worked as hard as Michael Jordan, that you can be as good as Michael Jordan at basketball?
I've always believed I could. Now, that level of commitment to basketball, I don't know if I...
Say you have the same exact level of commitment as Michael Jordan.
Oh, then I'd be a Michael Jordan.
Like literally.
Yeah.
You'd be able to fly like Mike.
But I didn't grow up in the same exact circumstances. Like someone probably said something to him that someone didn't say to me that triggered me a certain way. And he was probably triggered by certain things that led him to be a certain way.
I'm actually glad you bring that up, because I feel like people always tell me that, because I always felt like, or at least people told me that I was like naturally creative, right? Like I don't put so much effort into like creativity, but somehow I would come out with something kind of creative. But I think to say what, talk more about what you just said, I think there's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, because maybe I come from an environment where not only was art not nurtured in my upbringing, but actually demonized, not demonized like literally like you're the demon, but like it wasn't normal. Like, even my own brother would say things to me like, oh, making art is stupid, or it's, so I think that, was it innate in my soul just from nature, or was it a product of the chip I developed on my shoulder in reaction to someone telling me I can't do it?
It's both, nature and nurture.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. Like, for example, like, and that's why I bring that Jordan example up prior, because it's like, if you and I can't be Michael Jordan. I know that I can't. I'm going to be honest with you. If I trained as hard as Michael Jordan at basketball, I can't fly like
because
Mike.
because you didn't grow up in the same place as him. You didn't have the same mother or dad. Like, there are very specific things that led him to be that way.
But does that example, because I know that I can't do that because I'm just 5 foot nothing. You know what I mean? So I literally can't do that. So that kind of goes out the window. Now, if we were talking about writing, maybe. Like, can I be like an author, like, I don't know, Tolstoy or, whatever. Like, I think maybe that example might apply more, because it's not like physical things, I think, might actually be limited by my stature. No?
Could be. Yeah. There are some physical limitations.
That's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to something like basketball.
Yeah. But again, for me to be like Michael Jordan, I would have to have all the same things, including his genetics.
Like
his
literally.
height. I would have to be the same thing. So that's what I'm saying.
And
that's
literally
the only way that I can be Michael
did.
Jordan is if I experience life and I have the exact same.
But then you would be Michael Jordan.
That's what I said. I would be Michael Jordan.
Literally.
Yeah. But that's not possible for me.
So then it's almost like, why even consider it, right? Yeah.
So the way that I grew up with my family, like my parents escaping war and coming here, and my family both coming from divorces and getting together, and me growing up with, stepsisters, growing up in apartment buildings.
So let's
living
unpack
in the hood
this.
And my, all these other things. That's why I got to this particular place that led me here.
To you. And that's why this is Andy Pho.
Yeah.
Literally all these circumstances come to a head and they create you. And then also what you experience as your own person, but beyond what you were taught from them and whatever.
Right.
So I want to unpack what you said. Your family came from war. Explain that more.
So my parents they left Cambodia in the 70s due to the Khmer Rouge, right? So just through all the genocide that was happening in Cambodia, my mom fled through the jungles in Thailand. My dad left through France.
And that was separate. They weren't together.
They weren't together.
They didn't even know each other.
Yeah, they didn't know each other at the time. So they had kids at the time, and they just escaped. and they just grew up. My dad spent about 8 years in France.
So your mom came through the jungles, you said.
They're like, you're literally escaping through the jungles.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like intriguing. Not intriguing, like obviously, like in a good way, but I mean, glad she got out. But I mean, like that's very interesting because coming from here, my upbringing is much different, obviously.
Yeah.
So to hear someone say something like that, it's like the turmoil that people go through just to.
I've normalized it quite a bit, so I forget sometimes that I just speak it in like passing.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I didn't want to just glaze over it because for me that's like a really intense story. Like
so I'll unpack it a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
please.
And this is just from what I know of the story. Like it's probably not the whole picture because my dad's not even around to tell me his portion.
Okay.
But my mom ended up in California after my dad was in France for about 8 years. He ended up in California. My dad had 3 kids. My mom had 2 kids. And then they ended up getting together and moving to New York. Okay. So they settled in Brooklyn, and then they had me and my younger sister. My mom had one of her kids that came to New York. So I grew up with 2 sisters.
Okay.
But as I got older, I discovered I had other siblings.
Okay.
Right? So when AOL came out, you could create your own profiles.
I remember live and well. Yeah.
So you could type for somebody's name, and it was like the white pages, and you could find somebody's page. So I asked my sister, I was like, hey, I know you have a half sister. What's her name? So we punched it in. There's an adult photo of this woman, and we looked at it and was like, that's my other sister.
And you're just on an AOL profile.
Yeah, AOL.
AOL 4.0 or something.
Yeah, she made her own, homepage.
What year was this?
I was 14, so 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, 2002. So whatever AOL 5.0,
sure.
6.0.
I was using AOL early, so I know.
Yeah, I remember it being on like 5.0, 4 and 5.0.
Yeah.
And I quickly went to DSL.
Yeah,
that was next level.
I know we had the cable modems.
Yeah,
I was already gaming, man. I was a computer nerd.
Yeah. We'll get into that one.
Yeah.
So I found a sister through AOL, and then
this was a sister who was
through my mom.
Your mom, your mom was with you in New York. But your mom had other kids that were.
She had one more kid in California.
That was still in California, not with her or you. So you and your sister that you lived with currently found your other sister.
Yeah, and then she came out and we met her, and then.
So you reached out to her after finding her on AOL. You sent her what was it? An IM.
AIM.
Yeah.
And then there were 4 of us.
Okay, so now you have you and your sister who live with your mom, and then
another sister.
Oh, and another sister that lived there, and then you just found this distant sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
did she stay when she moved?
Yeah, she stayed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so then we grew up for like a couple years together.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2004, my dad was involved in a homicide robbery. So my dad was robbed right the week after my birthday in front of our building in Flatbush.
But did you have contact with him at that time?
My dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the one who was living with us.
Oh. Yeah. Your mom and dad were together.
Yeah. So I grew up with them.
And then he was involved.
Yeah, I was 16. And then the week after my birthday, we ordered a custom computer. I don't remember all the specs, but it was like really nice. And it was like $600 at the time.
Yeah.
He went out to the bank to get some cash and didn't come home.
Oh.
But it was like 3 p.m. and like we were playing handball in the courtyard of our building. We lived in a 6-story building. That's some New York
shit, by the way.
So we're in the basement level. And to get to my apartment from the street, you have to go through this dark alleyway. So you have to like use the key to unlock the gate. You go down this alleyway, and that's the alleyway where they store all the trash.
I know the exact kind of alleyway, like a New York alleyway.
Yeah. And there's no lights in there. Occasionally, people would like piss there, or homeless people would fall asleep. So we're playing handball, then the ball rolls into the alleyway, and we look, and there's like, some man rolling around, and it looks like there's some water on the floor. So we're like, oh, another homeless man, drunk, took a piss. So I get my cousin and my mom to go take a look, and we go up there, and it's my dad. He's laying on the floor. All his grocery bags have fell. The gallon of water broke. So that's what everything was from. We, sit him up, and then we check, and then, call the ambulance. He hit his head pretty hard on the concrete. Really smart guy, but couldn't answer all the questions of like, where are you? What's the president's name? Like, didn't know anything.
So he was just like out of it.
Yeah. His head was bleeding from the back. His skull was cracked open.
And somebody did this to him?
Yeah. So it's an unsolved case, right? So,
okay.
He was in a coma for 4 days, and we had this detective working on our case. There was like police everywhere. Like we just had our own, like, NYPD was our personal security at the time in that area.
Yeah.
and they just investigated, and they, you know, spoke to a lot of people, and they couldn't figure out who or how many people did it. There's some suspects and stuff. But through that, the detective found out that my dad had other kids.
Oh, because he was doing like a deep like search through the database.
Yeah,
Of, like
just figuring out about him.
Yeah.
So he was like, hey, your dad has 3 other kids. One is in North Carolina. You know, his name's Robert. He does, you know, tattoos, and he was in prison for 7 years. He's doing well now. You've got another sister and brother in California. Do you want to talk to him? And we're like, yeah, we want to talk to them. So we get on the phone,
and this was the first time you were finding out you had additional siblings.
I was like, I've got brothers, because I grew up with sisters.
so you had the 2 sisters and then you found the
Another
4th
sister.
the 3rd sister, and but that you thought that was like
I knew about that already because I've seen pictures of my other sister.
but these siblings your father had,
I've never.
it was
heard
you're
about
you're
it
learning
before.
about this for the first time.
Yeah, for the first time.
Wow.
And then when I'm talking to my brother, and you know, my mom's there, they talk to each other. They know of each other. And I'm looking around like, who else knows
So
about
your
this?
brother that you eventually met from your dad's
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
which was Robert,
Uh-huh.
you're saying,
Yeah.
he knew of your mom.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they knew of each other. And then his mom spoke to my mom, which my mind is blown right now of like
And how old are you now?
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your mind's fucking blown.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah.
16-year-old kid living
Yeah.
in New York.
Yeah.
And now you're just like, wait, I have a brother.
Yeah. I've got 2 more brothers and another sister. So now there's 7 of us.
Wow.
So they meet up, and then they drive from North Carolina to New York, and we meet for the first time.
Wow.
So there's all 7 of us together.
And that's the first meeting of Robert Pho. And he's already a tattoo artist at this time.
So this was 2004, and you know, when I saw his work, he was already in magazines, and
Yeah.
he had done all this portrait work, and that's what he was known for at the time.
Sure.
And it was cool. Like I've seen tattoos, but I wasn't still like drawn to them at the time. You know, like
And
I
so
just
you
knew
have
that he did
no,
'em.
so you know he doesn't, but you have no like tattoo knowledge, experience. Like it wasn't even something you
I
considered.
saw his work, and I was like, wow, he does really good work.
Yeah.
You know? That's in the summertime in June, and then November is the first time I get on a plane. I get to North Carolina, and I see him at his tattoo shops out there, and that's when I get my first tattoo.
So he tattooed you for the first time.
I saw my brother with like our last name across his stomach, PHO, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't know somebody could represent that hard. So
Wow.
then I got Old English PHO across my back.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we did that in his kitchen.
Sick.
So that was like my first tattoo, and I remember going back to school with like plastic wrap on it still, like for a couple days. I don't know if you need plastic wrap for that long, but
but who cares? You
yeah.
had Pho across your
right.
back.
And I didn't get any other tattoos after that, but that's how I found out about like all my siblings.
So that was you went and visited him in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But then you go back to New York.
I go back to New York.
And then what's the gap between you seeing him again?
I think it was probably so I was 16 at the time. Maybe I was like 21 when I was like old enough to start traveling on my own.
You got that tattoo from him at 16 when you visited him.
Yeah.
And then you went 16, so 5 years.
5 years. And, you know,
But did you contact him at all?
Yeah, we would call. He would send postcards and stuff.
Okay.
But, you know, there's a 17-year age gap. So we didn't really, you know, connect at that level.
So for those 5 years, though, you're just like kind of minimally keeping in contact, like, you know, here and there, phone call, like whatever.
Yeah, he's much older. He's got a family. He's
but
got
you
a
still didn't
business.
consider tattooing,
No.
having like really any like, you know, like association with him in that way.
No, that wasn't on the list. So
What were you doing at that time?
I was doing art, so I got
Okay.
to like, you know, show him some work, and I was interested in drawing anime through middle school and stuff. So
Sure.
he got to like see some of that. I went to college for electrical engineering. So electrical engineering was what was embedded in me since I was growing up, you know, be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. And I was like, cool, let me go do that.
Did you ever finish that stuff? Or
No. So I went there because my sister, who we found through AOL, she has degrees in mechanical, nuclear, and electrical engineering, and she loves her job. And I was like, I want to love my job too. So let me go do what she's doing, because clearly she loves it. I'm going to love it also. I had no idea what it meant to be an electrical engineer. So we go through 2 years of core classes. And then by the time the third year rolls around, everyone in class is raising their hand, and I have no idea what language they're speaking about all these symbols and stuff. And I was like, did I miss a class or something? But clearly like they were way ahead of
Actually, funny you say that,
me in that
because
level.
I went to a computer science class when I was in college.
Yeah.
And I signed up for it as like an elective or whatever, and I went in. and I literally walked out and went and withdrew.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I missed a class.
Yeah.
Because I literally know exactly what you're talking about.
By the third class, I was like, I'm dropping out. I'm getting a 70% refund.
Yeah, I did the same thing, man.
And I'm done. I would go into the elevator, and it was NYIT. We shared 2 sides of the building. One was engineers and one was architect students. I saw all these architect students coming out with like giant drawing tubes and drawing supplies. I was like, if I did architecture, I might have stayed. But engineering wasn't it for me. So then I dropped out and I went to like BMCC, community college, and I went for graphic design. Wow. Because I've always liked computers. So I was like, let me build websites, let me do Photoshop, because all those things were handy to me before.
Sure.
So I learned like all those things, Illustrator,
probably
photography.
Handy to you now, too.
Yeah. I learned all those things. And when you go to school in New York City, you get to choose as a kid your next school. So if you're in elementary school, you get a book this big to choose what kind of junior high school you want to go to. And you can pick based on the program. And I always went to my zone school. And then when you go to high school, you pick through a bigger book, you pick what schools. And it was like Sheepshead Bay, which had an art program that I made a portfolio for. I drew in front of them. And then I went to FDR, where you had to like take a business test. And I chose FDR because business was practical. So I learned accounting and keyboarding and all these business things. And then when it came time to choose a college, Parsons, SVA, like the art schools, and then it was like NYIT. And I've always pushed away from art, and I went to like the practical thing. When I got to BMCC, they had part-time Parsons art professors teaching there. And I was doing like drawing and painting and life drawing and sculpture, and all these teachers were like nudging me to do something with it. So I needed to find something along those lines. I was working retail, and I was at the handball park on a lunch break, and my cousin and some friends were there, and they were showing off tattoos that they did on each other. And I was like, that's not even good. Like, I could probably do better. So I asked my cousin, I said, hey, what do you think if I tattooed? Like, would you let me tattoo you? He was like, well, only if you get good. So I don't know if I took that as a challenge, but I asked my brother, I said, what advice would you have if I wanted to start tattooing?
So you contacted your brother, Robert.
Yeah.
But he wasn't living near you at the time.
No. So then he moved from North Carolina to Vegas.
But you called him.
Yeah. I was like, what advice would you have if I
So you got challenged by your cousins, but then you called your brother, who's already like, a fucking magazine, like it's like on top of tattooing at the time. You call him and like, hey, man.
Yeah. And then he was like, well, if you move out here, I'll teach you.
Wow.
So I was in the last semester of school, and you have to do an internship to graduate. So I was like, can my apprenticeship be an internship? They say, yeah. So it was a 2-month internship for school that they just had to sign a paper off for.
Sure.
I was supposed to graduate. I didn't, because I didn't apply for graduation. I didn't know that was a thing. So I'd never finished.
You need to actually apply to graduate.
Yeah. So that's how I got into tattooing, was like just through these chain of events that led me to. So if my dad didn't die, I don't know if I would have been in tattooing. If I wasn't.
Wait, your dad, when you told me about the situation where your dad was found in the thing, he died from that?
Yeah, so he died after.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I missed that part. Sorry.
I think you did miss that, because I heard the story as if he was in a coma, and then he comes back from it.
Oh yeah, he was in a coma for 4 days and because he died.
Oh my God.
I laugh because I tell that story so many times. Again, I just glaze over it.
Yeah, but that's like you just told me a story how your dad was fucking hit over the head by some suspects that are never found, and he was in a coma for 4 days, and then you just went on with this like crazy story about how you got into tattooing. And in my head, I guess I plugged in the fact that and he was revived and he comes out. It's like
there's so much shit that's happened to me and like through my family that it's just like I've had to learn to compartmentalize, to normalize all of these things so that I could be okay to like get to the next part.
Well, it's kind of interesting, and I'm glad that you did, because I think that like maybe it's like a testament to like human brain function, like that you have that ability to do that so that you can, like, you know what I mean? Is that like an evolutionary mechanism to keep you going forward?
I think we all do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of like interesting in its own way, right? Like,
but it's like we're gonna go full circle. It's like no one can tattoo like my brother because of all the things that he went through to get him to that particular place.
Absolutely.
No one can tattoo or be like me because of all the particular things that led me to here.
For sure.
It's not to say that you can't be better or do different things or whatever it is, but it's like to use the, can you be like Michael Jordan? Like, no, because there's only one of him that led to that.
Absolutely.
But again, if my dad didn't pass, I don't know if I would have met my brother at the time that would have led me. I might have stayed as an electrical engineer. My dad was so studious. Like he was a college professor that he would like push us. Like,
and you had a good relationship with him before he died?
When I look back, I actually did.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you never really know where it would have grown to.
Yeah, he would have nurtured me because he didn't want me to work. He wanted me to always go to school.
So you almost wonder if that would have been not good in another way.
I don't know.
Yeah, who does know?
Yeah. But he would have continued to like, don't drop out of school, keep pushing, like try hard and do this and that. Like, so I might have stayed as an engineer and I might have done something that I was happy with. I might have, completely.
It's interesting, like fate, right? Like as like an idea, how like you were saying, like everyone has like circumstances that kind of push them in such a way. And like, I feel like I kind of developed like a rebelliousness as a reaction to my upbringing.
What causes that, right? Like what led you to be this rebellious?
Well, I was raised by a single mother, right? Who was a go-getter and like worked 3 jobs with 3 kids, and so I always had this like, what's the word? Like a feminine influence. So I had my mother and my sister were like, my sister was really nice and, always had my back. And she was the oldest of us 3 siblings. And then I had my mother who was grinding, working 3 jobs, you know what I mean? And then I had my grandmother who was like, my mother's mother, who was like also like this amazing human that was just like, will do anything. Like, my mother always told me stories how like it was them two, like my grandfather left my grandmother. So it was like my grandmother raising my mother, and they worked at like Dunkin' Donuts, and they used to like steal the toilet paper from the bathroom, to like have it at home because they were so poor and like all this stuff. So I have this very strong feminine influence. And then it's like I had my brother who was at home and he was a little more like masculine. So I used to rebel against him. You know what I mean? But it's funny because as I got older, I realized how good of a guy he was, that he was just trying to figure out things for himself too. Yeah. And he used to think that he needed to fulfill the role of like the man in my house. Yeah. So I would rebel against him because I was safe with my mother and my sister. And like,
that's typically how it is.
And being the youngest kid, I was like my mother's little baby. You know what I mean? She's newly divorced with 3 kids, 2 a little older, and I'm like this little baby, So she nurtured me. So it kind of created this like love and empathy and, and all that stuff, and which is like some of the, beautiful things I've realized in myself that I do have is like being like, kind of like what you were saying before, like, when you talk about people, I think even when someone's having like a bad day or a bad situation or like doing something kind of shitty, like I know at least for myself, I go home and I try to see life through their eyes. Like you were saying, there can only be one, person because he went through those exact things. Yeah. I noticed that very evidently in people. Like, this person is this way because of all their circumstances. How could they be any other way? Like, for you to expect them to be anything different than what they are based on like what they went through is almost like narcissistic for you to think that they should be not that. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally like, this is that person's circumstances. Like maybe the person made a bad decision or isn't that smart here or wasn't, didn't do the right thing here. Well, it's like they only are equipped with what they fucking have because that's what they have, because that's what they went through. Yep. So it's like for you to think them to do anything else, you need to check yourself kind of. So not to like get away from like my story of what you were asking me, but I think that the original question you asked me is like where I get that rebellion from was like literally from the dynamic of my household, which for me was the best thing ever, because I don't know that I'm sitting here talking to Andy Pho, creating a podcast in a new city that I moved to where I, had a small amount of success, maybe doing tattoos if those circumstances didn't exist,
It's the best thing ever for you
to just be you.
Like there's no other way you could have it. It's like this butterfly effect. Sure. If you change any one circumstance at anything, like it's gonna be a whole different scenario for a bunch of things.
And as crazy as it may seem, when you listen to a bunch of people's problems around you, the only problems that you ultimately want to have are your own. Like I know that, you know, when I hear other people's problems, they could even be smaller than mine, but they're not familiar. And it sounds crazy. Like, man, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that, you know. But meanwhile, I'm dealing with what these tumultuous, I can never say that
tumultuous
word. Yeah,
to you.
to me, yeah.
Whatever is hard for any person, that's the hardest thing that they've been through.
Exactly.
You know, whatever like is their highest, like that's the highest that person has been through. And we go through this comparative narrative of just like, here's where I'm at, and we're looking compared to everyone else based off of our experience, and we're like, that's better, that's worse, that's harder, that's easier. You know, there's more love there's more hate here. But to some other people, like, it's going to be the spectrum is different.
Yes.
You know, so it always just depends on like what you have gone through that's going to lead you to, like, we're always doing the best with the circumstances that we have. Even if you feel like you've made a horrible decision, like,
I'm just happy you made a decision.
You made a decision because, like, or even if you didn't make a decision, that's the best that you were able to muster at that time, because you knew, like, if you could be at a better place, like, you probably would. But something in your life led you to be lethargic, to not want to take action, to not want to change a circumstance. And that's the best that you can do at that time.
Yes.
So even though, like, I may look and say, well, it's easy, you should just wake up earlier and just do that.
Yes.
Like, we're wired a little bit differently.
Or how long do you need to be lazy and wake up late until you learn the lesson that maybe for you right now you should change that?
Right.
Sometimes a person might need 6 months or a year or 12 years of being at, you know, maybe it's rock bottom for them, or maybe they just need to accept that they sleep late. You know, like, whatever it may be, I think that there's like a lesson to be learned one way or another.
And then depending on how somebody else interacts with you, like, maybe you need somebody to be harsh to you at this moment to make a change. Maybe you need someone to be a little more gentler or understanding.
Or just give you a hug
to make this change. Or maybe you just need to see somebody, you know, through that door doing something a little bit differently that's going to trigger you to change.
Or maybe I need my wife to tell me you deserve nice clothes.
Yeah.
Literally.
And that's what it is. And then that's what's going to set you on this whole new tangent to develop a different type of, you know, reality of, maybe like Bobby that would never have existed before.
Yeah, you just need to tell me, like, man, there's a home for this. Yeah. Like, I'm going to go home and put all the things that I have in their home.
Yeah. You know? Like, if Marie Kondo wasn't around, like, what kind of decisions would I be making? Like, it might be different.
I spent years looking for my keys every time I leave the house. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then my wife was like, why don't you just hang them on the hook? Yeah. And I do. You know, 8 out of 10 times. Yeah. But the 2 times that I don't hang them on the hook, I can't find them. But you know what? What if I just associate that hook as my keys home? You know? Yeah. Sometimes it's simple, but it's not easy. Yeah. I think that was like kind of something I said before. Yeah. I did flub the quote before, but it rolled off my tongue this time.
It came back. You got it now.
Hell yeah, man.
The whiskey's helping.
Yes. I mean, you know, I used to go to a therapist, and she was talking about something like that too, to bring that up. Like, how, like, for example, I like whiskey, right? But I never considered myself an alcoholic, because I can, you know, and it's not even like, oh, I could go 2 weeks without drinking whiskey, you know. But it's like, I could drink whiskey when I feel like I want to, or I could not when I feel like I don't. And I go through periods of both. Yeah. But sometimes in a weird way, I actually find that I like enjoy a few glasses of whiskey when it comes to like doing certain tasks. Like, yeah. And I even like ran that kind of idea through my own system. I was like, well, is that bad? Am I relying on this thing? And then it's like, wait, no. In certain situations, I enjoy that. And then there's other situations where I'd be like, no, get that the fuck away from me. I don't want that. You know? And I think that like is like what we were kind of saying before. You kind of find like what works for you where
at this time.
Yeah. At
this time.
Oh, for me, nothing's ever set.
Yeah, it's okay for you in the future. Just be like, absolutely not. I'm done with it completely.
I'm so open. You know? I'm open to that as far as like in the future. I'm not even gonna fucking do tattoos anymore. I've said that 100 times to people. They're like, how long have you known you were a tattoo artist? And I'm like, I'm not 100% sure that that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. You know, like. Yeah. You know, because if you find something that overpowers that, if you find something that your energy deserves to go there, like you'd be doing tattooing an injustice. Absolutely. By like doing it partially. And more important, like myself. Yeah. And then for yourself, like you have more potential doing something else. Some people feel like you do something, you're supposed to like go all the way to the end with it. Like, what if you were meant to do something else different or to do something better? I'm very open to that always. Yeah. I just do tattoos on people right now because it's what resonated with me most currently.
Yeah.
And I always said that.
Yeah. Now, if you're just like, and right or wrong, subjective, right? If you're just always bouncing from one thing to another and you get to the end of your life and you haven't found this one thing, is that a life wasted? And that's, again, subjective depending on the person. You may say that person has had so much life experience. They've tried everything and like they've found all these little.
And whatever conversation we have with them, they've had a little experience in it.
And it's like, great. They got to taste a little bit of everything. But for us, we've been in this pocket of tattooing and like we didn't get to experience anything else. We didn't get to travel outside of our hometown because, you know, whatever the circumstances are, we missed out on the rest of the world. Some people are completely okay knowing that the rest of the world is out there and they just want to stay here and do their thing. It's always going to be subjective based on you and where you're at. Are you happy staying there?
And do you mean it?
Yeah.
I think where I have a problem with it is when someone doesn't mean it and they're not happy doing it.
Yeah.
And you can see it. And again, I don't let it affect me, but I feel like I feel like I can sense when someone's not in alignment with themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only time that I would like wish that they weren't in that position.
Yeah, it almost doesn't even matter what I think of them. Well, it's that person when they wake up in the morning and they dread that thing, or when they look at themselves in the mirror, or the thoughts that they have.
I should say I'm empathetic towards their unalignment.
Yeah,
maybe.
I want everyone to be aligned and to do what they are doing and be 100% into it. Now, you may have to do things that you're not fully excited about all the time. Like if you have to work multiple jobs, if you have to do things as a means to get to a next place, like that's okay because you have a purpose and a reason to do that thing.
An end game goal.
Yeah. So you may not necessarily love having to work 3 jobs, but if you have to do that and that's part of your calling, your karma, your thing at the time, then it's like that's what you have to do.
I think it would be
your life's purpose.
It would be literally unrealistic to think that every moment of every day is literally totally in alignment. Like I could sit here and confidently say that even a guy like you who's taken all the proper steps to open your own studio, you know, relocate your family across country, you know, put your kids in hopefully what you believe to be a great school system, you're still going to wake up one day and face some adversity that's going to, you know, like make that system shake a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that, and you can, you know, probably talk about this more yourself, but like nothing is perfect, right? Like there's no, like there's no final destination. Like, okay, I wake up and I'm in alignment with myself, so today everything is perfect, right? Like,
no, it's about mentally preparing for those moments.
Yes.
You know? And that's why we wake up, and that's why we work out. That's why we meditate. That's why we journal. That's why we get ready for the shit that's about to happen.
Yes.
You know, so that you're not like just waking up and like expecting everything to be, you know, perfect. Nothing is perfect, but at the same time, like everything is perfect because everything that happens in life is for you.
It's like your perspective of how
you're supposed to go through all these things.
Yeah.
So if you're going through these waves of bad events and negativity, call it bad luck or whatever, like you're supposed to go through that because you haven't emotionally, mentally, and psychologically developed to be able to handle those things. So life is going to always throw you these tests, these same patterns until you learn how to deal with them.
Yeah.
The same sorts of peoples and personalities. And you may work the same types of job and be drawn to the same types of partners until you're ready to learn to overcome them.
Yeah.
You know, whatever those things are.
It's almost like 101, right? Like the person who is like, you know, and I know this sounds like a crazy, like brash example, but like the person who was like abused as a kid keeps attracting the abuser.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, when you make like small changes, then you start like attracting kind of what you put out, right?
Yeah. And
but
it's hard to break those cycles.
Sure.
You know, but it takes that self-awareness to like make the small, minute changes. And we don't know how powerful those small little moments can be.
Yeah, it's like something traveling a long distance. If you just take it off 1 degree, it's ultimate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Sure. But but I almost feel like it doesn't mean the bad won't keep knocking. It's almost like you set boundaries to a healthy level. Instead of building a wall, you build I always looked at it like building a fence. So it's like you could still see the dangers. Like I want to recognize like the bad things that are still knocking on my door, but I have a fence, and it's like, well, I built this fence to keep that bullshit out. but I could still see it. But if it's good, I can let it in. I could just open the gate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes people overcompensate and like they close themselves off so much so that they build this wall.
Yeah, you harden yourself up too much.
Yeah,
and you close
yeah.
off a lot of opportunities.
Exactly.
You know? But instead, if you just let in those adversities, so you'll use jiu-jitsu for an example. Like if you start rolling with somebody else, like then like how to handle those certain situations.
Yes.
And the same thing with tattooing. If you start tattooing color, when you're not really good at it, then you'll learn how to handle those things. And it's the same thing with personalities. Like you're going to meet certain people that you just not, you don't want to deal with. But until you learn how to deal with that personality, then you can say, okay, that person or that personality type is always going to be out there. I will learn how to manage my emotions and my reactions better so that it doesn't impact me as much. At some point, you'll be able to it's not even on your radar anymore.
Yes. I agree with that. 100%. Yeah. Well, I actually kind of want to go back to, you were telling the story. So then you finally met your brother, Robert, right?
Uh-huh.
So then you went out there and you did the, you said it was like a 2-month, it?
So for college, it was a 2-month internship just so I could finish the college year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was my
But then did
apprenticeship.
you stay out there? Because I don't think we ever
I was there for about 7 months.
So you were supposed to be there for 2.
No. 2 was just on paper for the college.
Yeah,
right?
but so you did that.
Yeah.
But then you stayed an additional 5.
Yeah. My apprenticeship was not dependent on that 2 months at all. There was nothing there. But I stayed for 7 months. It was June up until December.
Okay.
And I had just ended up didn't have any clientele out there, lost all my savings, didn't have a car, didn't have a means to get around. I was homesick, and I just didn't feel like I could make it.
So then
out
you
there.
come back to New York after 7 months stint.
Yeah. So then I had a conversation.
But you were the apprentice at that time? Or?
Yeah, I was an apprentice there.
But you didn't finish.
No, I didn't finish.
So you come back to New York.
Yeah, I come back to New York and I talked to my brother. It was just a really hard conversation of
I'm homesick.
Yeah, I don't have any money. I'm homesick. I still want a tattoo, but I just can't do it here,
Okay.
So he was okay with that and, let me go back home. So I went back home. We didn't sign off formally on any apprenticeship. And then I went back and I was hoping to tattoo again, but it was hard for me to find somebody.
So you're looking in New York at this point.
Yeah.
Trying to break in somewhere.
Yeah. And trying to tattoo out of my house, that wasn't working.
So did you buy a kit off eBay?
No, I had stuff already during my.
Because
I was already tattooing in Vegas, but it wasn't a lot.
So you're the apprentice. You're doing all the typical apprentice shit. Bought the gear. You've done a few small tattoos. You had all the gear.
Yeah, I've probably done maybe 50 to 70 tattoos,
smaller,
of all different sizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I might even say 50 to 70 sessions.
And what year was this?
2011.
11.
Yeah.
So then you cash that in. You tell Robert look, this, I'm homesick. I'm broke or whatever.
Yeah.
Fly back to New York. You're living with your mom now. Back in New York.
I got my own apartment.
Okay, so you have your own apartment at this time.
And I was trying to tattoo out of there, and it just didn't work. So I went back to what was safe, and I worked retail. I went back to the company that I used to work for.
Was it Forever 21?
No, Uniqlo. So
Uniqlo. I know Uniqlo.
Uniqlo's a shit.
Yeah. I was in Uniqlo a few months ago.
Yeah, Uniqlo's a shit.
Yeah,
I love all this stuff. So I went back to working there, and it was.
So you're just working the floor at Uniqlo.
Yeah. So I'm crawling back to Uniqlo because they're oh, what happened? You were gonna go be a tattoo artist, right? And it was one of those things see, you just come back and work for us.
Yeah.
And this was 2 weeks in. I have a friend in New York who was working at a tattoo shop. It was a basement shop in Brooklyn. And he was hey, we just had an artist that left. I see you're back in town. Do you want the space? And I call him back. I was if you give me that space, I will quit my job today and I will show up tomorrow.
When you say space, you mean a booth?
Yeah, a booth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's yeah, you have the space.
Uh-huh.
So I called for my 12 to 8 shift the next day, and I was hey, I left a voicemail. I was I'm here to call for my 12 to 8 shift. I'm not going to show up there. Actually, I'm not going to show up at all anymore. I quit.
You found the fucking...
Yeah, I knew I wanted to still tattoo.
You just wanted to be home.
Once I got into tattooing, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, so there was never any wonder about that. It was just I might want to go back to New York.
It wasn't this lifelong dream that some people have of just like, oh, I saw a tattoo from when I was very young and I wanted to do that. It was like I fell into it through my circumstances, and like I loved the idea of doing it. And when I got the opportunity to work at the shop, they were just doing walk-ins. Like we had a flashbook of like different tattoos that were already done of like dragons, koi fishes, and Phoenix. It was like a Chinatown basement shop. And like I was just doing the same tattoos. Like we had the stencils ready, and these people just wanted the same exact tattoos. So that's where I got
that's where you got your repetition.
I got my repetition in there.
You're
I was banging
solid,
out like
you're black,
I was banging out
your
like
lines.
dragons on like a shin in like 3 hours.
And you were in Chinatown, you said?
Yeah. So we were using coils, and like I would just line the whole thing in an hour. I would just shade it in, and like we would just do like one after the other.
Just bam,
Yeah.
bam, bam.
And I was there for about a year and a half, and I thought I was like good. I was like, man, you know, like I get to tattoo here, and Tattoo Nation comes out, the documentary.
I remember I saw that was in 2012 or 13.
No, 2013.
I saw it because I was an apprentice at that time, and I went with my shop to the movie
I saw
theater
it in theaters.
to see it.
Yeah,
yeah, same.
And I'm watching it. I'm just like, wow, like this is the history of like black and gray. I know that artist. I know this artist, and
Wasn't like Freddie Negretti like a big face of that one?
And we're watching it with the artist at the shop, and my wife, who's my girlfriend at the time, was there. And then like one of my brother's works pops up. I was like, oh, that's my brother's work. Like,
Wow.
I love it. Like, that's so
Crazy.
cool. So we get out the movie theater, and we're walking back in Manhattan, and I call him. I say, hey, I just watched Tattoo Nation, and your work was on there. He goes, oh, cool. I didn't know that. And he's like, hey, we're just about to open this new shop. You know, we have, 8 booths, but, we'd love it if you could come work here. I can't guarantee to hold a spot for you, but, let me know if you want to do it. And I was like, man, like, I was just so inspired and so motivated to just like see all those tattoo works and to see the history of it. And I was like,
for sure.
I want to come back.
And I remember feeling the same way.
Yeah.
But I also didn't just see my brother's work in the same film.
Yeah.
So I could imagine like, what that does to someone,
But this is where it started to like tear me apart, because I already left my girlfriend once, right? I was like, honey, I'm moving across the country and I'm learning how to tattoo. She was like, you sure this is going to work? I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I come back home.
And then you come back and she's still there.
Then like we got our own apartment together. We're ready to get another.
Now you're like, hey, honey, I might want to go back.
So then I have the conversation with my brother, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I want to take my tattooing to another level. Like, this is what I have to do. So I talked to my wife or my girlfriend, and to tell her again that I'm leaving, that was like, it was so heartbreaking. And I was like, I have to do this. Like, this is what I have to do. Like, I don't, like, I'm going to go broke.
But it was very clear to you.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to go broke, like making this work, because we weren't in a walk-in location. It was like it was an 800 square feet shop. It was on the, this middle of nowhere.
Where you were working in New York?
No, in Vegas, where that shop was. I was like, I'll go broke. I'll make this work. The first time I didn't have a car, I didn't have a bicycle. The second time was like, I'm bringing my bike, because I was commuting in Brooklyn. So I was like, I'm going to ride my bicycle to get around.
In Vegas?
In Vegas. So it was like August, it's 115 degrees outside. I'm biking, 5 miles out.
You're just melting fucking rubber.
But I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I have to make this work. I started meal prepping. I rode my bike. Like, I just did everything I could to save every bit that I had, because like this was going to be it.
It was just so clear to you.
Yeah. Like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah. And you'll do anything to make it happen.
Yeah. Now. But as with any shop that's opening, there were just delays of like the build.
So you moved out there before it was even finished.
Before it was open.
So where were you working?
So this was August, and so there was already 3 artists at that shop, 3 booths, and it was full. They were working there 6 days a week. So I would work on Sundays, and then I would tattoo before shop hours, which was like 8 to 12. I would tattoo.
Yeah, just whatever you had to do.
Or like 9 to 1 to like get something in.
Yeah.
And as I'm there, I'm just like, the money's barely coming in, and like I'm just like trying to like just scrap everything together. And this was from August until we open in January. And then once January comes, the shop is open and I'm working there. And again, I came here for this. I'm there from 9 a.m. to like 12 a.m. Like, first one in, last one out. And just like, it was hard to work at that time, because it was just like, I think there was like 3 other artists. And I remember like my brother just struggling to keep the shop open, like to just pay for the place. It was a really big build out.
Yeah.
But with all the loans and everything else, he was working about like 7 days a week overtime. I was like, I'm going to do the same thing.
Sure.
So just being right there with him to like, work there, like, and I was charging like $1,200 a day, but like anything that you can contribute is good.
But do you feel like that's where you got that like innate work ethic from, kind of?
I picked it up from my dad, my brother likewise.
Do you think it was almost like genetic, kind of?
It wasn't genetic,
but I mean, but not
it was
like literally
it was passed
genetic.
through like this one person.
Yeah.
Like
it was like influenced from the family core. I should say.
So then to like he was doing that and I was doing that, and then like one artist left, so then there was like just 3 of us still. And, we were just like making it work, and just seeing like, late payments for the rent come through, and like, we're just struggling to like make it happen. But eventually, like, we slowly get more artists and there's more clients and my work's getting better and we're charging more and, this and that. So we go through this, really tough stage to like keep the place afloat.
Yeah.
But so then from there up until
and he just has one shop at this time.
Yeah, one shop at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I just started to just develop my own clientele, my own like body of work. Other artists come and it's just like just developing the work. And then it was probably 2014 we opened. 2015 start doing like tattoo conventions as like the come along artist. Help set up, and I started to tattoo at a show. My first show was in Hawaii.
The one in Oahu.
Yeah,
I was there in like 17, I think. You were probably there too.
It's still one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, I think I might have missed you. But I didn't know you yet.
Yeah.
But I was there because one of my friends, Travis Broyles, invited me.
Okay.
And it was super cool because I was like kind of young into tattooing, and he just took a liking to me, and he was tattooing for a long time. And we didn't even do the same type of styles, and he had like more of a traditional kind of view. But I think he just appreciated that, like I appreciated his view and wasn't like so judgmental, of all that kind of stuff. And like, so he invited me out there.
That's awesome.
And it was cool. So I was like so happy.
2017. Oh,
I think it was 17. It might have been 16. Not sure.
So end of 2016, I decided to like focus on portraits. Mm-hmm. We had an artist there that left, and besides my brother, no one else was really doing portraits.
So you just saw like a opening in the market.
And I was like, well, if no one's gonna do portraits, like I should learn how to do them.
Yeah.
So I was doing like portraits for free. That's how I got into it. Like I did realism okay, but I was still like scared to do portraits. Mm-hmm. So I started to do like the Batman leg came out, the Alice in Wonderland leg.
I think the Batman leg, I feel like I met the guy who that was on.
On Derek. Yeah.
Derek, is that his name?
Yep.
Or was there a guy named Pat? No,
Patrick. Yeah.
Patrick.
I started to work on some portraits on him also.
Yeah. Okay.
I did Doctor Strange on him in 2017. So I developed like a series of projects of like portrait collections. And then that year I was like, oh, I think I'm getting somewhere with this. Let me start doing some sleeves. So as I'm developing sleeves, I'm like, I was already 2 years into like doing some shows, and I tried to enter some pieces in, but it didn't work. And I was like, I'm going to study all the biggest shows and like see like what pieces are winning. And I'm going to like take a little bit from each and like inject my own, style into it.
Sure.
So the Alice in Wonderland leg sleeve was like my thesis project. That was the best that I knew in tattooing in like 6 years. And I was going to put everything I knew into this one thing: textures, composition, size, the different values, like everything was going to be in there, realistic and illustrations. I was going to put it all in there. And first show that we go to, that I go to with that client was the New York Empire State 2017. Mm-hmm. My brother's already been there the year before, and like first place, black and gray, large sleeve, like, clean house. And then I'm tattooing there, and then they announced second place, my brother. And I was like, oh man, congratulations. If like he won, like I'm not getting in there.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so I'm just like, cool, like congrats.
Drum roll.
And then like Andy Pho, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And everyone's cheering for me, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like I'm just still trying to work. And
yeah.
Is this really happening? Like, oh shit. Sure. And then, everyone comes back super excited, and I'm just like, surreal moment, like first place, second place. And like my brother probably only got second place because he won first place last year.
Yeah. And like 100 other times.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
So it was like really cool. Like that's like the only convention or trophy that was like memorable to just like be side by side at my first show.
Wow.
With like a piece like this.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
And then I spent the rest of that year planning out like all the big shows that I was gonna go to, and like bring Alice in Wonderland, bring the Batman leg sleeve. So that was the year that like every show, like Skin Design Tattoo, Andy Pho, like that would just pop up over and over.
Yeah, that must have been when I probably first heard about you.
Yeah, so then that's when I started to meet all the artists that I know now. Was like,
and I was just friends with Michael Perry, who would walk around conventions and meet other people.
Yeah.
And then because I was friends with him, it's like, well, oh, you know Andy Pho.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now I do because you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's and it's cool because that's like the circle when you hit
it was
conventions.
It's like a dynamic.
Yeah.
I was more of like, I don't want to say standoffish, but I just kind of, do my own thing. But I was always friends with the guys who made the connections, kind of.
There's always an era of like tattoo artists and different pockets too. So different styles in different years. You'll know this was the black and gray, who did this sort of style. This was the black and gray who did this sort of style. The color guys in this style from this place. Exactly. And they would just roam conventions at a certain time. Yeah. From time to time.
And actually, it's funny you say that. Yeah, because that was like a thing. But I feel like personally now, and I don't know where you stand on this, but it almost seems like now that we've kind of hit like I don't want to say a class, but like an era where we're almost like all kind of at that phase now. We're kind of like building different foundations. Like we had that like convention period. Like I know at least I did, where I was at every convention and I was, hanging out with people and I was shaking hands and my friends were shaking hands. And then it's like, but now I'm like more building roots and like grounding and like, creating my own little studio and like my own podcast. And you have like, Upside Tattoo.
Yeah. People go through waves.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's not to say I won't like, re-embark on that same wave in the future, but like, at least for now, I'm kind of like taking a little bit of a back seat from like the so much so like networky convention in that sense. Yeah. Would you say the same for you?
Yeah, I say so. Like I went my first couple years, 17, 18, 19 with the intention of like, I'm doing pieces with the intention of like, I'm getting recognition at these shows because I thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I was molding my style to at the time what was going to like get the most attention.
Right.
So like whatever did win was because like it was studied to like this is the type of work that's going to like garner the attention of this particular time period.
Yes.
2020 rolls around and the last show I do is like Golden State Tattoo Expo.
Me too. I think. Yeah.
And then convention stopped.
Yeah.
I like the clip that you showed me with Sean of the tattoo conventions about like you're just waiting for somebody else to judge your work.
Yeah.
And there's a quote from Corey Flatmo that he said in an interview of like, it's not the awards, it's not the magazines, it's none of those things that's going to like give you. I'm going to butcher it too, as I heard this one a while back. But those are not the things that's going to give you validation. It's in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things of like just over time. Like I knew that statement. I heard that before I was doing tattoo conventions. So whenever I won, I knew it didn't make me, but it was a great marketing and advertising tool to be at a show and like win an award because people there knew who you were and you get to post about it and you get to be this award-winning artist.
And why shouldn't it be?
And especially if you won a trophy on a Friday or Saturday, it can sit at your table at the booth. Yeah. Like you're going to just generate more attention there. So it's a great tool for you to like get more awareness.
Yeah. I actually have an opinion about that in a different sense. Like I've met and encountered people and I've even fell into the trap of thinking like, well, why should this award matter? Or, almost like a too cool for school take on it. Like, but I think the more mature I get and like kind of look back on it, like I think that like what you're saying is like I think a lot of people like to pretend like that's not so important, even though they actually do value it. You know what I mean?
It's a little both depending on where you're at. Like some people like I just want to win one. Yeah. And it's like if that's what you're waiting for your whole career and you may or may not never get it, you're relying on an external validation to like give you the sense of like happiness or worth.
But for some people that might just set off their confidence and it might be a great thing.
Yeah, it could be. It could be a follower count. Some people are looking to get to a certain amount of followers. Yeah. That's going to give them that confidence. But, it's about like your wholeness, how wholesome do you feel like doing the actual work and getting the recognition and more clientele and, raising your price rate, all those things are nice. But if you have all those things and you're still not alive or awakened with like what you do, like then it's
or you
kind
just
of meaningless.
simply don't feel good or like enjoy, the service you're rendering and like happy to do it.
Some people I know give really shitty tattoo experiences, and it's just like they want to be able to like post the picture or to like win at a convention or something.
Yeah.
But we forget like this is a human to human interaction. Like it's just as equally, if not more important, for the person that's wearing it to have a really good experience. And I know of stories of people who get tattoos lasered off, by really good tattoo artists or from conventions because like the experience just sucked.
Yeah.
So it's like it's equally as important to make sure like you're doing it for the client and you're like making sure like they're having a good experience. And
sure,
I think sometimes that's what's forgotten. So to go back to like Upside, that's where the entire focus is on, is like on the client the entire time to make sure like, are they being taken care of? Are they going to remember this experience? Is it worth it for them to come back?
Yeah. And I think with that being said, kind of like what we talked about before, it's like there's a spot for everyone. And maybe there is a client out there who like doesn't give a shit about the experience, and they're like, I literally just want this to look sick on my arm.
There's some people who don't give a shit, and that's okay.
There's people who eat at restaurants with bad customer service, but they have good food, and then there's people like maybe like me. I actually enjoy a great restaurant experience, and I actually enjoy talking to the waitress, and I love when they're knowledgeable.
And you might like a little bit of both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it might even change for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yes. And I think that there's just everyone kind of falls where they fall, and you have the power to curate that.
Yeah.
I think.
I just don't want any of my clients to have a shitty experience.
No. And I agree with that.
Yeah. No matter where it's, and I have some clients who've been tattooed at conventions. And it's unfortunate because like when we go to convention, they have to know like, we're going to be disturbed the entire time because people are going to want to look, ask you questions, ask me questions.
And that's just the reality of that situation.
And then like, that's just the way that it is. So I feel like, if you're there getting a tattoo, it's good to know like what sort of setting you're going to be in, and if you're okay with it. But as an artist, you don't really know. You can't project what kind of person that is. If they do care about the experience or not. But at the end of the day, like it is a human to human interaction.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's something that some people lose touch with, and I think that it's really important. At the end of the day, like we mentioned before, you're collaborating with someone on a piece of art that at the end of the day is going to be on their skin forever. Yeah. So, as cool as you may think you are, or like how awesome you are, like at the end of the day, someone is sitting here surrendering a piece of their literal body for you to make a piece of art on them. So like, I think just having like a little bit of humility to maybe like hear their opinion or what they might feel about it or something like that.
Here's what a lot of tattoo artists forget. Like these people have saved money. They've waited weeks or months for an appointment. They are physically changing their body. Like they have this,
like literally.
Yeah. They have this maybe once in a year, once in a few years experience of like, I'm going to physically alter my body right now.
Yeah.
And then they
might be the first time they ever physically altered their body.
And like, what is this experience going to be like? What is it going to do? And then like sometimes as artists, nonchalant, like it's just another work day.
Yeah, it's Tuesday for you.
We're tired. And it's like, cool. Like you want to get this design or not? Like you barely put any effort into it. You think, and like, you're just pressuring them or, whatever the experience is. And then it's just like, did we forget that how much they have been doing research and preparing for this moment with you as an artist?
Yeah.
So like that sacred relationship like gets lost. And there are some artists who don't care. There's some clients who don't care. You may find each other at some point.
Sure.
But for those who forget, there are people who like look for an artist based off of their style, their personality, their location, their price point. And they're like, I want to change my body with you.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So for me, like I'm starting now to get like tattooed again. And like, I know there's so many amazing technical tattoo artists now. I just want to get tattooed by like good people, like my friends who can
that's
like
kind
do
of like
something that's meaningful for me.
That's a neat evolution in itself.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like we were talking about other like attributes to your life. Like as you grow, you kind of like adapt to like how you experience them. It's like almost as like a person getting tattoos, you kind of like might come around to that at some point too. Yeah. Like, and you're not the first person I've ever heard to say that, and I feel the same way at this point. At this point, I don't give a shit kind of, I mean, I care what's on my body, but I don't fully care.
Yeah, we still want it to look good. Like,
But-
don't do a shitty job on
let's
it.
let's not get it twisted. The baseline is still nice. But at this point, I'm not going to get a tattoo from somebody who's the most technically nice tattoo artist in the world at all. I'm just going to want to be hanging out in a fucking situation that I want to hang out in with somebody who I want to hang out with. But that's just where I'm at, because I also have a lot of tattoos, you know? So it's like, for me, it's not that anymore. Like when I got the tattoos from Samoan, I was just excited to like travel to Ukraine and like, you know, experience the energy of this, you know, amazing guy that I looked up to watching YouTube videos of when I was like learning how to tattoo. Now, like, do I feel like maybe I would get on an airplane and go there? No, not really. At this point, I might want to just get tattooed from somebody that like, I'm not even looking to exactly learn what they're doing, but more just like be a part of their vibe.
Yeah. You're at a different phase in tattoo collecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I was getting tattooed by my brother, we were going to do half Cambodian and half like Chinese tattoos, because that's my background. So my right side was going to be like Cambodian tattoos. My left side was going to be like Chinese tattoos.
Right.
So he started with my ribs. I had a tattoo done up here. I had a tiger done down here. And as we were getting more tattoos, and, you know, the word like tattoo collector comes around, like I wanted to be a collector on one side and my brother was into the other half. And then at some point I was like, I've never seen a lot of people with like one big bodysuit, the same style of work. So over time, I was just like, I think I'm going to laser off my old work so it can all be the same, because I valued that aesthetic at the time. So I lasered off both tattoos here that were like great. They were technically sound, great artists. And the same thing with my back. I lasered off the first tattoo that my brother did for me so we could all make it all uniform.
Right.
And that's just like what was like valued at that time. So
Yeah.
it even changed twice. You know, just like wanting to collect different things.
And
the
funny part about it,
to like a full body suit.
it was even funny because he did the tattoo and that was kind of like what set you off on the thing. But you're like, hey, at this point, I'm already like on my trajectory.
Yeah.
But I want you, the same guy, to just do like this composition. So like, fuck it, let's get rid of it.
Yeah. And there were several things that just lined up, because it was like, we've never seen anybody with like a Cambodian style bodysuit that was done this well.
Right.
He was my brother. He's my mentor. He's my tattooer. So like we were just going to go through this journey of like just, you know, transforming the whole body. Yeah.
And a historic like moment in tattooing, because even I know it wasn't like multiple days. Like
yeah. So like we'd done a lot of this since like, you know, 2011 we started. But then over time, it's almost like whenever you had the chance to get tattooed, like if you had availability, like you would get something done.
because you were working with him in Vegas there.
So like you would never like know when it was your turn.
Yeah, just like when he had a day open, you weren't working or something.
And then he moved to Hawaii. He opened a tattoo shop out there. And then like we were trying to like schedule days and times to get it done. And I was like, well, what if we just planned ahead of time and we did like 7 days back to back?
Oh, okay. So
See
that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I knew about that.
Yeah. So then like we ended up doing like my hand, my ribs, both sides of my chest, both sides of my neck. And like we covered it like 73
7
hours.
days in a row.
So from that point, people thought I had my whole like upper body done in like 7 days. But it was just like, you know, certain areas.
Oh, because you already had some done.
I already had a lot
so you
done
just
already.
patched in the remainders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was like the first time like somebody sat, as far as we know, like for like 7 hours, and like we were able to like complete. And like it's not a lot of time, because when you think about it, like it's not 7 full days. There was still time to like prep and stencil.
Oh, okay.
But it's all in like horrible areas.
It was
like,
7 days of tattooing, but like maybe one day you did 4 hours, another day.
So we did
6.
like 5.5 hours here on the hands. Then we did like 4 hours on the stomach, 5 hours on the ribs, 8 hours, like 6 hours here, 8 hours, 6 hours, 8.5 hours. And it was just like all in like really shitty, painful areas, you know, but it was nice because we moved on from one area to another.
Completely different area.
And then it was just like a 1 week healing process.
Okay. With all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then-
wonder if there's like, is there any healing, like detriment to healing so many different parts of your body at once? Like, does your body allocate resources towards healing one particular spot? Or did you find that all healed just great?
I felt it all healed pretty quickly. The smell was just horrible.
But you could actually smell
Oh,
the
like
heal?
just the flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
like when you would just take
yeah.
off the plastic wrap, just like the smell of the flesh. Yeah, you know that healing tattoo smell.
Yeah, just like yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, then once I was done with the 7th day, I was just so amped to see like how much progress was done. I was like, do you have an 8th day available? And he was like, no, I have another client who's flying in. So we didn't do it. And then next time we were like, we should plan for 14 days.
So that's where you got your influence from, working long. Because you do the same sometimes, right? Or you did at least.
No, I only tattoo like 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay.
I used to work 6-7 days a week.
But you used to tattoo one client for 6 days, no? I've not seen you do that.
The longest I've done is 3 days with the client.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let me back up what you were saying. So you were saying that you said, let's do 14 days. Did you guys ever do it?
No, we didn't actually do it.
Okay. Okay. I was like, wait, whoa. Tell me about this.
Didn't get to do it yet.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. So, I used to tattoo like 6 days, 7 days. Like that's when I really had to like make money to put a down payment for a house or something.
Yeah, you were grinding.
Yeah, and then I was like working 16-hour days, so it'd be like from 8 to 4, then 4 to midnight.
Yeah,
and
like double days.
I just wasn't producing my best work.
That's true shit.
You know, so like I could do a decent tattoo. Look from the client, they're doing a good job.
No, I know.
But I know that I'm energetically drained
in your heart
that
like
I'm not giving them their best.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that, and then it was during COVID that I was like, we had to shut down for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I guess I'm gonna take some time off. And I go back and I tattoo a client for like 2 days. I was like, go back, take a week off, tattoo a client for like 3 days, and then like next week work like 2 days, 3 days. And I was spending so much time with my daughter. She was 18 months at the time, like 18 months to 2 years old. And I was like, I loved being able to be home and like see all those things. So I was like, this is the schedule that I wanted to have.
Yeah, I almost find the same because like it's funny, during COVID I felt like when I first came back to work I started like 1 day a week and then 2 days a week, and now that I look back on it, sometimes I feel like that was when I was at my best.
That was some of my favorite work.
Me too.
Because like I was, when you're away from something that you like for a long time, like you're ready to go back with even more, you have even more energy to do like your best because you're not doing a lot of it.
But also, I have like a weird relationship with this too, because sometimes I'll like find myself like late at night scrolling through my like Instagram posts of like my work, and I'll like actually, you know, re-empathize with myself to like where I was mentally while I look at every piece. I don't know if you've done that. I'm sure.
Yeah, you have an energetic connection to each of those pieces.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird though, and I noticed this because I'm always trying to fulfill this like idea of a perfect version of like, oh, I'm driving to work and like, you know, my sunroof is open and I'm in a great mood and, you know, I'm drinking, like I already made coffee at home and I'm like caffeinated by the time I arrive and I'm well fed and, you know, and then I get there and I just like have a nice consultation with my client and I make this beautiful design. And it's like some of my best work was like literally, I was like arguing on the phone and, you know, spilled a drink on my lap. And I'm like, but this tattoo is my favorite piece of work. Yeah. So that's where I get confused sometimes, because it's like sometimes like it was a bad situation, or not, I shouldn't say bad. Like I should just say like a situation that wasn't ideal. Yeah. Or what my idea of what perfection would be when I did that. Like how come I love this fucking tattoo? Like I was not prepared. I was like kind of anxious. Like I didn't sleep good the night before.
Sometimes it's the happy accidents.
Yeah, well that's why I never want to like fully write off the fact that there's sometimes just is this organicness that is just very unpredictable. Yeah. And sometimes I don't know how you prepare for that. I don't know how you like try to re-emulate that or whatever. And I don't know if you do.
You can't, because you don't. Again, going back, there are certain things that lined up to like get you to make those quick decisions to be like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to mix that with that. And this is where we're going to put it. Are you okay with that? Right. Cool. And there's a certain like definitiveness to like designing quickly, which is how I typically work. I don't work on designs like more than, you know, like 2 weeks prior, like, because I don't want to like have to overanalyze everything. So I'll start to brainstorm within the 2 weeks. And as we get closer, I'll start to finalize it. For me, even
further, like I'm talking about, like I came in and like might have designed it like with my client.
You doing it the time of?
Yeah, like or like like some like really weird circumstance.
There's like a definitive like decision.
Like it's like a confidence. Or I don't know.
You're quickly going through like, this is what I know works. This is what I like. This is what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
It's a very definitive like decision making.
So that's why I get caught up sometimes in like this idea of what I think would be the perfect thing for me to create the perfect piece of art. in my head sometimes isn't actually in alignment with the reality for me. You know what I mean? Like, because some of my favorite shit is like opposite of what I'm thinking would be perfect. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird.
I still put a time frame when I'm designing. So like I'll set windows aside of like, all right, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. I'm going to work on designs right now because my daughter's going to come back home from school and I need to like spend time with her.
Yeah.
So I still put time constraints. It's not to say like if I put 6 hours or 8 hours, it's going to be a better design. I likewise work really well under like time constraints because it forces you to make split decisions.
I'm with that.
So like when I'm looking for references, like I'll scroll through so fast. I'm not looking at every photo, but it's what catches my eye at that time. And it's the same thing when I'm editing like a composition. It just has to feel right. If it doesn't feel right, I'm not going to spend more time looking at it to, you know, try to make this thing work. Like it either feels good and works or it doesn't. And that's sometimes the hard part is that's what we were saying with like the experience of just knowing like what our thing is that we can put together design in an hour, right? Because of the experience with that. But you give somebody else who's less experienced 8 hours or 2 weeks, they're not able to come up with the same thing because of that decision making hasn't been developed.
Well, on the contrary to that, what I noticed is the longer I tattooed, I used to take 8 hours to make, say, the same thing I do now. And then as I got more efficient and more like better at doing it, I would make that same design in like an hour. But then I started at one point would question myself, like, did I just put less effort into this? Because I used to spend 7 hours, but now I spent like 40 minutes. No, but it took like
you spent less time.
There was a gap, but there was like a delay of me like accepting that I was able to just achieve the same effect so much quicker, but I didn't trust that that's what I was doing right away. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'll give a perfect example. I was helping my friend. I was just going to go visit him at his house. Yeah, he's a musician. And he was like, hey, can you help me out with like a cover album? It's my first album. And I was like, sure. He was like, I tried working with some other artists and I don't like what we have. I was like, well, let me see what you have. And I was just walking him. He was like, can you help me like come up with the design? I was like, well, I don't really know because I have to like talk to you about what you like and what you don't like. So I was giving examples. I was like, I took my photo on my phone and I took a picture of like a photo that he had on his desk and I blew up a texture. And I was like, see, we can use this, or we can take a picture of this desk. And I blew up the texture there. And like, I was just quickly like photoshopping things together. And I was just nonchalant, just like literally fucking around, which is what we do. Like maybe this works, maybe that works. I'm just showing you how I think. And to him, it was the first time he saw that. He was like, that looks good. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just showing you different things. He was like, how'd you do that? I was like, it's not that, you know, I'm saying like this is something that I think looks good, but it's just pulling possibilities and trying things. But because I've designed so much, I was able to pull that ability to take a photo of this texture and use it. Versus if you've never done that before, that wouldn't be in your tool belt.
You're eliminating the things that don't work right away because you already know, because you've been in that situation so many times before.
Right. So when it comes to designing for a sleeve, it may look like I can do it. You know, I'm not putting much effort into it, but like I'm making these split decisions.
Well, we talked about this before. That was like, you know, 15 years of experience behind, like under your belt that enabled you to get to that point. Like what goes behind the scenes, like all the nights that you failed fucking pulling the wrong references for 10 years.
I compare it to driving.
Yeah.
So like, if you remember, maybe when you're learning how to drive, you're nervous, you're hitting the gas too hard, you're braking too suddenly, you turn the wipers instead of the blinkers on, your steering is too abrupt. But over time, it becomes smooth.
Over time, you get to the point where you're like, wait, how the fuck did I just get home?
Now you can like probably text, you know, when you shouldn't, and like you can do all this. And
well, do you ever, like, that's like an actual psychological thing. You got home and you're like, wait a minute, I was like not even here.
You weren't paying attention.
But you were.
Because you're on autopilot. You know how to do these things. You can look for cars in your blind spot without even spending energy to think about it. So it's the same thing when you're creating design. It's not that you're spending less effort. It's now been committed to a different part of your brain that can autopilot the decision making for designs.
Absolutely.
And the same thing with tattooing.
Which is
I really love being able to teach people in tattooing, because they're going to ask me these questions like, why'd you just do that? And I'm like, do what? They're like, that thing. I was like, hold on, let me rewind and do it. And I have to, Mark did this when he came during my mentorship. He was asking me about what I was doing, and we had to like confirm what we were talking about, and I had to like deconstruct it. and explaining. He goes, okay, that's what I thought too, but I just wanted to know like what you were thinking about that process.
Yeah, yeah.
And it helps me think about it more so that now I understand why I do certain things and I can articulate it better to the next group.
It's almost like teaching kind of like helps teach you why you're doing something. That was
they say when you teach, two people learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I almost sometimes I feel compelled to like either have an apprentice or do like a one-on-one like thing just like almost for that reason, like kind of selfishly. Like I think I would benefit from that too, because you start to like, you go full circle, like where you almost start forgetting why you were even doing something to begin with.
I used to get bothered when, you know, an apprentice or someone less experienced would ask a question. I was like, here goes the dumb question again. But it's like, to them, that's gold. That's the first time they've heard of this thing. We've played with the reasons on why these certain things don't work. But for them, like whatever you tell them at that time is like, they're going to hold on to that. And that's what's going to develop, you know, influence their decision making.
Exactly. Andy, I'm going to pause here. I got to go to the bathroom. So
let's pause.
Bad. You want to pause it up?
Hello.
Whew. I think I just did like a 3-minute piss.
Good break. Good tea.
So what were we saying? I don't even remember.
I don't remember now.
So I'm going to have one more of these.
My water's boiling.
That's funny. You got the green tea boiling.
Yeah. That's been the go-to. I stopped drinking coffee.
Did you? Because I was telling my wife, I was like, I asked Andy what he wanted to drink on the podcast, and he said green tea, and she's like, oh yeah, I understand, because my wife don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I don't drink coffee either. And I'm like, but last I remember, Andy drank coffee.
I drink a lot of coffee.
You used to drink a lot of coffee. You used to like get me a coffee like 2 times a day.
That would be our thing. Like we would get clients coffee. So
yeah. So you stop now.
Yeah.
But you still have caffeine.
Still have caffeine.
Just in a different delivery method.
Caffeine doesn't really, I don't think caffeine does anything for me.
Me either.
And I'll go through periods of time where I don't have coffee or don't have tea. I can have, you know, a quad espresso right before bed and I'll be fine. The only time I felt any caffeine jitters was during like a 5-shot espresso.
And it was probably short-lived.
Then I could start to feel it. What's that?
It was because like I don't know if I'm
short-lived,
like meaning like you felt jittery and then you were able to just get through it and then it was gone.
Yeah, then it was gone.
Yeah, same with me because I drink coffee, I drink caffeine and tea and all that stuff. Like I always feel like I'm like the most addicted, non-addicted person. Like meaning I love caffeine. I can like drink whiskey, but then I could also just like not have it and be okay too.
Yeah,
you know, I just like it. Yeah, like you know, like when I have it,
you have it until you're done with it.
Until I'm not in the mood to have it.
Yeah.
It's very like it's like literally like I used to smoke. I just quit. Like cold turkey, vaped. Quit. Yeah. No problem. Just didn't want it anymore. Yeah. You know?
I slowly just came off of it and just to like see like how my body reacted. So I would always like the flavor of coffee. So then I switched over to decaf.
Okay.
Then it just didn't do anything for me anyway. So when we created Upside, and this is what I understood, we were changing the vibe of it. We wanted to take this experience that a lot of people were anxious, they were nervous about, they were excited, and we wanted to just kind of bring that energy down. So there's a difference when you go in somewhere and he's like, do you want coffee or do you want tea? Coffee's like, yeah, I need some coffee right now.
I see.
Tea's just like, yes, I would love some tea.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Yeah, so we're bringing that energy down. I've also heard that caffeine,
it's delivered different from tea.
No, I was gonna say it makes the tattoo hurt more.
Oh, I've heard that too. I've heard it makes you bleed more. All kinds of things.
So, but anyways, we do it just more so for the experience of like, it's tea, right? And we have all these different tea types in there.
Look, and I'm not gonna lie. Like if I came into your studio and as a client and you offered me either tea or coffee, and you're like, if you didn't offer me coffee and you're like, we have tea, I would actually like. It's funny.
You'd be inclined to take the tea?
No, I would definitely take the tea, but I would think of it like, oh, it's just tea.
It's just tea.
Like it's just the way you outline it makes sense even in my head. You know?
And then like we have all these different teas.
Because Love Machine was kind of like that in the sense that like, there was coffee shops nearby, but they always had tea stocked, but they never had coffee. At least when me and you were there.
No, they had Nespresso there.
No, it changed. It changed. They had that when you visited.
Oh, when I was visiting, yeah.
But when you worked there full time, and so did I, they didn't have coffee.
Well, that's why I'd always go to Starbucks.
Me too. Yeah, and me too, or wherever. But like they always, and then sometimes I would be like, I don't feel like walking over there. I'll just have a tea. Yeah. Like, and I always felt like it was like a little more like. Not as like intense. So it's like my association with the tea was very similar to like what you're saying.
Yeah. No, tea's been the go-to for a while. And then also like always just making sure like I'm drinking water. So like when I find that when I'm drinking coffee, I'm just always dehydrated. If I'm drinking tea, I could probably drink a lot more.
So it's not a diuretic tea.
Not that I know of.
Okay. But I in my head, it's not.
Yeah.
Like you're getting hydrated at the same time.
Yeah. And it's easier for me to drink more of these. Yeah, because with coffee and it's bitter because I just drink it black.
And you're using the same bag in that too, right?
Yeah.
So you just like kind
over
of
time, it's just it's diluting.
You're getting the most out of it, and then
Yeah.
eventually you're almost drinking water with like a slight tea tinge to it, and you just keep doing that until it like expires. In a way, it's kind of like a cool way to go about it too. Actually,
if I drink coffee, it's black, and then there's like that bitterness, so I'm not really drinking coffee all the way through. Versus like if it's tea, I can just keep drinking it.
So I because I'm on this like ketogenic diet, I've been, which I hate saying, by the way, I've been rewording it lately to just like, I don't eat carbs, because I don't want to be like the vegan, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm keto, like look at me, but but really that like, I just don't eat carbs. Right? Yeah. But, I do drink my first coffee for the day with heavy cream. And it's kind of like
a good taste.
Yeah.
It's creamier. Yeah.
But with the diet, it also fits like the,
because it's low fat, not low, it's high
fat.
Yeah.
And I like, they call it fat fasting, right? So like I'll fast as long as I go every day, as long as I can without eating, and I'll drink that coffee around like, noon or 1. And I might have woken up at 10:30, noon or 1, I'll have a coffee with, fat, which is the heavy cream. And then I try to just go as long as I can from that. So that little bit of fat gives me like the brain power.
Yeah. It's another source of energy.
Yeah. Until
you would be using carbs. For
yeah. So I get that fat in the coffee, and sometimes I'll put some MCT oil, and then that'll get me a little further. Yeah. And then I'll eat eventually. You know what I mean? Like 3, 4 o'clock every day, first time. And it's worked for me. I mean, I lost a lot of weight, so I feel good. So
you look good, man.
I can't complain. Yeah. You know what I mean? It works, whatever. And I guess it's probably not a one size fits all, but works for me.
Yeah. For me, it's 2 cups of eggs in the morning. So I'll have like 4 whole eggs, and I'll have
just
a
raw?
cup of egg whites. No, I'll cook it.
Oh, okay. Me too, though. I eat the shit out of eggs.
Yeah. So I'll go through like 2 cups of eggs, and then like that's my breakfast.
Yeah. Me too. I eat that for, when I eat that, I eat eggs a lot late for dinner, like when I get home from work. Yeah. Because it's just high fat, high protein. Yeah. And I mean,
if you ate eggs all day, like it'd be a great source of protein.
Eggs to me are a fucking superfood. Yeah. I love eggs, man. I crush eggs in my house. Yeah.
It's a bit hard to find recently, just due to all the egg shortage.
I mean, I didn't have a problem. But.
Yeah. No, we go to Costco. We pick them up by the 2 dozens. We'll get like 3 of those.
Yeah, I crushed that shit. Eggs, barbecue out here, man.
Yeah, no, it's been easier for me to step away from eating barbecue just because I got burnt out over it. But just over time, again, just doing things like for my energy, I try to find foods that like I don't feel lethargic. So like it's typically just like steak, chicken, or eggs. And I'll have some rice with it.
Me too.
But it's the same thing like when I'm having lunch with my clients, we always order Chipotle lunch.
Me too.
And it's because it's consistent.
I agree.
And it depends on whatever your diet is, whether you want a taco, burrito, bowl, if you want vegan or chicken.
I eat Chipotle 3 times a week. There's one across the street, and I get it with no rice because I'm on the keto thing or whatever. So I get the lettuce underneath. Yeah. I get double protein,
Versus when we used to order burgers and fries and barbecue or whatever it is, like fried foods, like I would feel lethargic tattooing, and then also my clients wouldn't feel good. So it's like we just try to find something that's just like clean, that allows them to like.
We have the kebab shop right here, which is my new favorite place.
That's a good option
because I get like the chicken kebab with the and then they have the steak, or they have like the lamb. Yeah. But I get it over a salad. Yeah. And man, I fucking crush that shit.
So how's that work with your clients? Are you getting lunch all the time with them?
Oh, I always buy my clients lunch. Yeah.
I mean, that's just why did you start doing that?
Because I met you.
I didn't know that was gonna be the answer.
No, but well, yes. Like I think I always did it sometimes. Not always, but like I did it a good amount of time. Like just being from New Jersey and kind of having that like a little more. We kind of have that like vibe. From the Northeast. At least I'm from an Italian neighborhood. I grew up working at like an Italian restaurant. It's kind of like it's like that joke, Jeet. Jeet, like Jeet yet, like they said it, like you always make sure your people ate, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that whole, I'm mostly Italian, and it's like that whole thing. Like I'm not gonna order food and fucking dive in while my client.
Well, that's what I've seen a lot of. You know,
I was never about that.
Yeah, when I've seen that just at all the tattoo shops.
But
I've worked at.
I will say before we go further that I particularly a lot of instances with you was sharing food with a group of people. And I had that experience with you on multiple occasions. And in fact, one of my clients, one time I was tattooing my friend Sean, I remember, and you ordered pizza from in Love Machine.
Yeah.
Because you would even take it a step further where you're like, I'm not going to order me and my client food. I'm going to order the whole shop food. And you would order a bunch of pizzas.
Yeah.
And there was like this sense of love, right?
There's a sense of love and community. Like,
and
when,
I appreciate
when you all eat
it,
together.
and I get it,
Yeah.
and I've seen it, and I've witnessed it, and I can sit here and tell you about it right now that like I was part of it, and it's very important, and I'm with it, and I order food every time for my clients, and they offer me money, and I say absolutely not, you know.
It's part of their service, right?
But I will say, I did tattoo somebody for 3 days, and I ordered them food twice, and then third day they're like, no, I'm gonna get food this time, and they insisted. And you know what I said? Okay, because that makes them feel just as good as it made me feel. Yeah. So I get that. Yeah. But that's circumstantial. Yeah. But I think that food is love and food is culture, and you know.
Yeah, I've just seen it where like artists would order food ahead of time because they know when they want to eat. Yeah. And then the food gets here and they go like, okay, I'm going to go take a lunch break. My food is here. Like, let's go eat. Then the clients are left like, I'm going to finish wiping off my sword tattoo and I'm going to go maybe wait in line for some food, maybe eat something fast because I feel rushed that my artist is done.
The only time I do that is when my client sincerely tells me they already ate. Yeah. Then it's like, okay, well, I mean, at that point it's like, I'll tell them, there's a Whole Food, and I'll even offer them a drink 5 times. Yeah. So, and I'm lucky right where I'm physically located right here. I have like Whole Foods, which has like, a fucking, 50-foot fridge of every drink known to man. I'll run there 3 times throughout my tattoo sometimes because it takes just a minute to get there. Like, what do you want to drink? Like literally anything. You want a yerba mate? You want a fucking, kombucha? You want to, whatever. I'll offer them that, if they don't want food, So, I'm big on that actually. Yeah.
I mean, that's just how I've grown up is every Saturday there was always a house party, whether it was at my house or my parents, friend's house, like, and we'd always see it like they would be cooking all day just to get ready for this, this gathering. And then people would just like eat all evening, and that would just be their way of like getting together, after the week. And I would just see like my parents always hosting and like always the thing was like always have more food than you need, like you don't want people to ever go hungry. So it's just one of those things of like whenever we're getting together for a gathering, a party, a dinner, or like having lunch at the shop is like everyone like, did you order food? And then like we'll all just generally eat at the same time. Yeah. And then it just brings the sense of like being able to just connect and bond over other things.
It's like a bridge of culture, really, because if you think of like a lot of cultures, it all revolves around food. Like, right. Yeah. Like obviously there's like a lot of different things that make up culture, but like I think at the forefront of most culture is food.
Yeah. Because everyone needs it.
Yeah. It's like, it's like a basic necessity, literally.
Like if I travel, like we say like we will travel for food. Like that's more, like more so than the architecture or anything, because that's where you can bond with the people who work there and you're talking about it. Like, I'm always like, what do you recommend? And then from there, like the conversations will start. And I'm like, where are you from? How long have you had this shop? How'd you come up with this? What's your favorite item? Whatever it is. And then the conversations get deeper and deeper because that person is typically putting their whole livelihood towards it. You're coming to this place to experience this type of food. Yeah. So it's always been fun to like just go because of a certain restaurant or a certain cook or chef.
Well, I actually had this particular situation. Me and my wife were in Cinque Terre, which is like 5 terraces in Italy. I don't know if you're familiar. It's really cool. If you ever get to Italy, I recommend going. But it's like you've probably seen the pictures in like postcards and like calendars. It's like with all those colored houses in these little like coved like areas in Italy, and it's 5 little towns that are like a mile apart. And we were there eating one night, and we were out late. Like all the restaurants closed earlier than we knew because we were just so used to like American standards. And it's like a little fishing village. And we were just got caught up in like, I was snorkeling or like, so we would get back. And by the time we got dressed and we're in this little village, it might have only had like 8 or 9 restaurants, and we'd get back and it'd be like 9 o'clock by the time we were ready. And we're like, we need to eat. And we'd look and there was like everything was closed. And
Yeah.
we're like, fuck. But there's one restaurant open till like 10:30, and we would walk across town, and we ate there like every night because it was the only.
Yeah.
Because we
Only thing that's
were
left.
we were caught up in so much adventure, like, and there was so much this fucking region has to offer. You
Yeah.
know, like you're in this beautiful region of Italy. It's like, you know, I'm not gonna like rush out of the sea or like some cave, you know, to make sure I eat. You know, it's like, so we're just taking it as it comes. You know?
Yeah.
And finally, we find this restaurant, and we order. And we're like, you know, they're telling us like, you know, we're closing soon. And we're like, we just made it. And I order, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to take the lasagna. And she's like, I'm going to take this like, I don't know, some fish dish or whatever. And it was like a bunch of shellfish and pasta. So we order it, and my lasagna, and I'm starving. I didn't eat all day. The lasagna comes, and it's this small piece of lasagna. It comes in front of me.
Yeah.
And then my wife gets this huge dish of pasta with all these fucking crab legs and fucking things. And I was like, and I'm looking, I'm immediately jealous because I'm like, she's got like 8 times the amount of food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I take a little bite out of lasagna, and I make this face, and I go, it was the best fucking lasagna.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so good. She asked me, what's wrong? She thought something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Like, this is the best thing I ever imagined eating, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so she takes a bite of it, and she goes, oh my God, what the fuck? And then she goes, do you want to trade? And I was like, it was like the biggest like trade in my life. Because it's like, well, 8 times the amount of food or the most delicious piece of lasagna that I'm ever faced with even imagining eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And long story short, I made the trade. I went for volume because what she had wasn't too fucking shabby either. You know what I mean?
We get back to the mic.
Nah, it's all good.
Sometimes less is more, right? Like
Yes.
when you have less of something, like you typically savor it. You eat sushi?
I love
Okay.
fucking sushi.
So if you go to like a really nice sushi restaurant,
We always go to Uchiko. You ever been there
I
yet?
haven't been to that one yet.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
I heard there's a few other
people
really
told
good
me,
ones
yeah.
here too.
But it's like if you order like the omakase and they choose like the items for you, then it's like you only get, you know, how many ever pieces and the little dishes that comes after that. But it's typically always the right amount.
Yes.
Versus if you go to a place that you can order, you know, a whole boat or a platter or all you can eat, you'll eat yourself sick, you know, like where you just eat too much and you really won't even appreciate every little piece. The quality is also going to be different.
No, absolutely.
Versus like,
I think once you explore fine dining, that becomes very evident. Yeah.
like you may not be able to fine dine all the time, but even if you ate like a good amount of food, you know, like let's say Chipotle, you know, like you don't need to like stuff your face with it, but if you eat the right amount, like you're going to really savor it. And
I've
enjoy
definitely learned that over the last year.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Instead of just like getting extra everything on there. Like
you just need to eat the right amount.
Yeah.
When I'm done, my goal is to feel good.
Yeah.
Like just right. Satiated.
Well, the idea is just to like eat it for nutrition.
Yeah. Literally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That just to be right.
Yeah.
Like I'm satiated. I have enough fuel now to
Yeah.
go partake in the rest of my activities for the rest of the day.
But I think for the most part, a lot of people are just used to eating until the sensation is full, you know, and then that's where like you're typically overeating.
It might even be particularly like an American, like thing. Like
I think so.
of. Yeah,
Yeah, because I've been to other places where like the servings are much smaller, and I forget every time like I'm, you know, first or second day in another country. I was like, oh yeah, it is less food. But
I started eating like that here now. And that's how I lost a lot of weight. So not only was I cutting out carbs, but I also just eat the right amount.
Yeah.
You know, always. Yeah.
why is that?
Why did I make
why here, like the land where everything's bigger and you can have more?
And actually it's actually kind of funny because I think that why is simply because I started to value my health. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, you know.
It's a very good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the for me the best reason. I think that I just had a change. For me, actually, I used to snore when I was overweight, and I was, you know, deciding like, do I have sleep apnea or is this induced by, you know, being overweight for my structure?
Yeah.
And all I did was simply lose weight, and now I just value being healthier and not snoring at night and just feeling better about myself. So for me, it's very easy. Actually, one of the most easy things I did in my life was to change my diet habits because I feel better.
Well, easy as in how long did it take you?
Well,
Right?
let's go back to what I was saying before. It's simple but not easy.
Yeah.
I should say it was simple, and then
When you realize it's important, then it's simple to make that switch. Like
When it hits
you
home.
can throw let's say like you quit drinking, you can throw all the drinks away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can like change all the shitty food when you realize like
Yeah.
it's not good anymore. So it's simple to make the switch once you realize.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So it might have been, 35 years counting to come to that head.
You may still know that, let's say, doing something is not good for you, but it may not be enough for you to like switch off from doing it.
Yeah.
So knowing and realizing like this is really bad,
Mm-hmm.
and what is it going to take for you to realize? Like cigarette smokers, for example, it used to be on the box, that like, pictures of black lungs.
And it doesn't, it might not even hit home.
It doesn't hit them yet. So the awareness is there of like, well, this thing is bad, but
Yes.
I like it. But until like it hits home and it's something that's like important to them, such as someone dying or they get a diagnosis or whatever that trigger is, then it's enough for them to make that quit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I somehow had that realization when it comes to like food consumption and health and all that stuff. And I can't say that I'm perfect. Like I said, I'm here still drinking whiskey or whatever have you. And but I think it's for what works for me like currently
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I'm always open to making all these adaptations when it comes to myself. And the first one I started with, I think before the food thing, was quitting nicotine,
Yeah, I remember you were vaping.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about vaping since the minute I decided to stop. And people were like, well, how did you do that? And I was like, literally, I just woke up, threw my vape in the garbage and never thought about it again. And for me, that was literally the situation.
Yeah.
Literally. No, it's not all.
That was the situation.
Yes.
That led to that. That was the deciding moment, but it wasn't all that it took to get you there. Because it took you to stop smoking cigarettes.
First.
It took you to vape.
My wife was the one who made me stop smoking cigarettes. She didn't make me, because no one makes you do anything.
Yeah.
But my wife was not into smoking, so I started vaping when I met her.
Yeah.
Because I liked her and valued her and wanted to be with her. So what I did was I started vaping, right? So then I was vaping, and then actually one day, and it's funny, and I'll take you through the situation exactly. I was sleeping in bed. We lived in New Jersey. My wife sent me an article about Juul. I was using the Juul, right? She sent me an article how Juul like had a bunch of like, I don't know, like bad pods. Like they were not right. Like there was literally like a fault in them, like a bad batch that was giving people like problems with their lungs or whatever. And she sent me this article telling me how they knew this, but the company somehow bypassed the error in the creation of these and still put them out. Yeah. And then we're getting like sued. I don't know. And I'm probably misquoting exactly what happened, but long story short, they did this and they still sent them out for production despite being not correct. And I was smoking a Juul at the exact time. And I read that article and I was like, this is a company that doesn't care about me. No. Like literally. No. And I literally woke up in the morning. I didn't even take another like last hit of it. I put it in my garbage. And I said, I started to like empathize for myself. And I started to think of like, my internal like organs, like literally I started picturing like my body, and I started like having these ideas of me as like a kid and like this little innocent kid who like was, my mother gave birth to and loved and, and my sister and brother who loved me and like, and this nice little kid who was like digging in the beach and like, like all these little things, innocent things. And I was like, I'm just going to take this chemical from some corporation who doesn't give a fuck about me. Yeah. And I'm just going to and just suck this into my lungs. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that like, it's actually like, and I was just like, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm smarter than that. Like, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that. I literally put in the garbage and I never smoked it again. I never even thought about it again, man. I haven't even been out drunk and was like, whoa, when I get drunk. Nope. It's been zero tempted since. I promise. Don't even think about it.
Because that's, again, it always leads back to like what you value that makes you have that decision.
Yeah.
And for you, it was that reflection on what you just said.
Exactly.
That brought you there. People
who care about me, my family, and myself and my health. And I really do value that,
Yeah, when I used to smoke a lot of weed, I would like to do it through pipes, like glass pipes, and like every time you would smoke it, you would just see this tar that would just build up in this pipe, and I would get cleaners and clean it, and it would be sticky all over, and you know, I would go through blunts, and it was one of those things of like, that alone wasn't enough to get me to stop. It was an influence because like I knew in the back of my mind, like this is what is probably looking inside, and it was just over time, and I think this is the same thing that happened with drinking. It was just over time. My body, I didn't like the way that my body and my brain was feeling. It was just, instead of feeling like relaxed, I was feeling more like tired. I was feeling more drowsy, more like more foggy. And that, I think that goes a lot to say with what my headspace was like in the past. So in the past, I was probably going through some really fucked up stuff that smoking it made me high. Versus I got to a place where I was elevated enough that now every time I smoked, I felt low.
Oh, yeah, man, I know what you're talking about.
So the same thing happens with drinking. Like your life's a dull, it's bore or whatever it is. You know, you just want to like drink more, you know, and sometimes drink to excess because that's going to give you a certain rush or more excitement than you've had previously. Yeah. So it took you up. But then over time, you may be at a certain point in your life where it's just like you can outgrow the drug or the medicine. And
so that's
like,
how I feel.
I'm done with this. So you may be on this taper off element.
I literally, I can say confidently that I am at that position. Like, for example, I couldn't smoke weed for a long time. Like when you met me and we worked in New York, I never smoked weed. I hated weed. In fact, I could smoke weed now more than ever. And I smoke it, and I don't very often, but when I do, I actually enjoy it because I'm smoking weed now in a way that like I'm not doing it for any escape or any enhancement. It's actually to like using it maybe how it might be used as a medicine.
You have more respect for it, like I do for landscaping.
Yes,
or you know, again, it's. Mark will have a good conversation.
Even drinking whiskey, right? Let me say this. I'm drinking whiskey now, hanging out with you because I'm truly like I'm off today. I'm having a conversation with a friend, right? I went to an electric music concert the other day for an artist who I really love, you know? And I had like one drink and I started drinking water. And I was like, I don't want to be out of control or out of my element while I experience this show. When I was young, I would have wanted to get like drunk at the concert. Now I don't want to do that. Now I want to drink whiskey now because I'm actually like I'm actually like, this is the first day where I'm like, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm actually sitting here like doing what I want, like relaxing and, you know, tasting a whiskey out of like the proper glass or whatever, right? But if you were to tell me you had a cheap whiskey in the wrong glass and I was in a situation I didn't want to be in, I wouldn't want whiskey. You know what I mean? Like I only want to drink whiskey in the right way.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you were going to, you know, go to someone who's going to make it really well, you know, someone who handcrafted it. Yes. And you don't drink often, but you would go and like try it because you know someone put all their attention into it. And it may be the same for somebody who doesn't like tattoos, but then they find somebody who really cares. Like
that's a real thing.
I not that I want to convince people, but after people get to understand perhaps me or my style of work or whatever it is, they're now more inclined to get it because they see
I've had that
the care or attention behind what's being done.
I've had people tell me I never even wanted to get a tattoo because I didn't know tattoos the way, like I didn't know tattoos existed the way that you do them. Yeah.
One of my favorite compliments, and again, it's still an external validation, but I was at a tattoo convention and this woman just, you know, entered in the contest for like most tattooed, you know, woman. And she was like all covered in like this aquatic scene from like neck down to her feet and hands, and it was like, you know, all this blue colorful work. And she saw one of my tattoos, my Alice in Wonderland leg sleeve, and she was like, I've never liked black and gray tattoos, but if I was to have room, I would probably get black and gray tattoo now. But it's one of those things of like, you can break out of your norm if you see something that is done really well, or if you just have a reason to be inclined towards it.
Whatever it is. It's almost like this meta like magical, you know, it's like, it's something that I almost think as humans, like we wish to define, but we can't. You know? Like it's a thing.
It's always circumstantial depending on like why you would get into something, you know, and again, it's what leads you up to that event. So when I really started smoking was when my dad passed away. So when he passed away, I was smoking like 4 blunts a day. And I was 16 at the time.
So you feel like you were doing it for the... Like,
that was our coping mechanism. So that was like the prime time summer. School was just about to end. It was all of summer, and it was like wake up, smoke a blunt, breakfast, blunt, lunch, blunt, dinner, blunt, and like we'd repeat it all summer long.
Yeah. So you're just avoiding.
And that was our coping mechanism to deal with, you know, the emotions and the feelings of that time. School came back around, and I tapered off. And then, you know, I got back into it when I was working retail and when I was, you know, tattooing, because that's what I felt like, oh, this is what people do, you know, in the same way that why I got into drinking, because I saw that that's what adults did, you know, so we do it. And after some point, it's just like, this doesn't serve any purpose for me anymore, you know? So it's just one of those things of like, you find out like what it does for you. Mm-hmm. And if it gives some people more creative when they do, you know, whatever it is, then that's fine. Some people need to drink it socially for work because it helps them, you know, close a deal or do something. Like that's your reason to go about it.
And I think everything is okay until it becomes a detriment to whatever, you know, the reason is. You know what I mean?
And you would have to decide, or
what that is
somebody
for you.
Somebody else can point it out to you that it is a detriment.
Sure.
You know, but people don't know until it happens. Like people who are really overweight, mm-hmm. they don't really know the toll it takes on their body until they lose all the weight. Yeah. And the moment like it comes back or any form, then they start to feel it. So there was one time I was going from my house to Coney Island Beach, my apartment in Brooklyn, and it was like it was a 5K, it was like 3 miles. And I had like a 50-pound rucksack on. Mm-hmm. And I just got the sandbag and it was empty. So I was going to go fill it up at Coney Island Beach. So I go run to the beach with, you know, 50 pounds on. I fill it up with sand, and now I'm walking with 110 pounds. And the goal was just to like just do this physical activity. It was a bit of exercise, and it was, you know, to, you know,
just get home with
the sand. Yeah. But I was just like, I never want to be 110 pounds overweight.
Because you know? That's what it would be
because like. I know what it would feel like at that time. But if it was a gradual, you know, increase, I
becomes normal.
I may not know. So normal. You normalize whatever that circumstances, even if you know, even if it is a bad thing, it's a little bit more than what you previously had. It's like given to you in doses.
That's real shit.
And I think that's why people start to drink more and more, why they smoke more and more, is because it's just a little bit more.
Yep.
You know, but it's only when you start to question your addiction that it becomes a problem.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, because at what point is there a normal limit for you, like where, you know, you just are enjoying something like that? Because I've had that conversation before with like a alcoholic, and he was like, I don't drink. And I was like, but, you know, I have a couple beers, you know, I'm here out to dinner, and, you know, I worked hard for this dinner. Like, is it okay that I have 2 beers? And I was younger, and I asked the person this question, and they were like, well, is it a problem for you? Yeah. So it's like kind of comes back onto you. Like, I guess the answer, like, I don't know the answer, but I'm saying, like, you know, just because somebody can't have any drink because they had a problem with it or it became like a huge detriment to their life, is it okay that this other person has 3 beers when they're out, you know? When they're out together? Or just that you're saying either way. Like, meaning like say I'm an alcoholic and you're not. Mm-hmm. And or not, that's a bad example. I don't know what I'm saying. If I'm just a guy who just drinks 3 beers every time I go out to dinner, and you're like a recovered alcoholic, can I still have those 3 beers? Or is every time I'm drinking a beer, is it because I'm masking something? Like, is there a healthy way to consume such a thing? Or in your opinion, is it like somebody drinking like that, just even if they're just having a drink, is it bad? You know? Well, the idea that I understand is anything that you do is masking something. Right. So like, it could even be a positive thing. It could be like, or what society says is a positive thing. Even working could be a problem. You could be great. You could be successful. You could be impacting the world. But working to escape your family. Sure. Like, you know, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Yeah. Same thing with running. I was running because I was feeling good. This was my physical activity, and I was taking care of my health. I was challenging myself. I had all these positive things. But you can run so much, you're hurting your knees and your fucking or I'd rather just not be at home. You know, that could be one of it. Or I don't want to face the canvas. And that was a real thing that I talked about with Mark. I was like, it's harder for me to sit in front of a canvas and come up with an idea than it is to get out and run like a half marathon right now. You know? So you'd rather just go run a fucking half marathon? I could run and it's not a problem. Then look at a blank canvas. But if you tell me for 2 hours, like just go sit there and paint,
not that I won't do it, but it is a little bit more frightening because it's like I have to
Yeah.
face what I'm weakest at right now.
Well, here's the difference between me and you is that we have the same fear. The difference between me and you is that you're going to run a half marathon before the fear. Because when I'm looking at a fucking podcast, I have literally the same fear, but I'm just don't run the half marathon.
You don't run half marathon, but you figure something else to do.
Probably.
So it comes in all forms, whether it's doing, watching a movie.
So would you just say is the human condition?
It's a human condition.
Yeah.
Like to be still and sit with, which is why meditating is so hard.
Sure.
Because like you're literally witnessing all your thoughts and feelings. And some people just like, I just can't sit still. Like, fuck this. Like, why is it so hard to sit still? It's because like all of you come out.
So then who am I? Because I never had a problem sitting still, but I could still get caught up in the same things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always thought I was a little bit weird like that in a weird way. You know what I mean? Because like I always felt like both, like anxious and crazy, but also kind of like settled, at the same time. But I guess it's like we were saying, like everyone's kind of unique in that way, right? Like I just need, and I'm constantly figuring out who I am, right? And it's changing and ever evolving. And I'm sure you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But I never had a problem. Like I could be alone. Like I even like being alone. I was just talking to my friend about that the other day. Like I went to a comedy show the other day alone because I had like a table of 4 and 2 couldn't go. And then I was going to go with my wife. And then she had some like problem before we were going to go with her eye. She had to go to the doctor. And I just didn't want to eat the ticket. So I went by myself.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Great. Go out to dinner myself. Go to the comedy show by myself. Sit in my car with no music on. Completely alone. Great. Flew to Miami the other day. Went to the beach 2 days in a row. Laid in the sun completely alone.
Yeah.
Went to the pool of my hotel by myself. Loved it.
So if we were to use that example, it could just be you don't want to socialize with anyone else.
Right? But at that moment, at the same time, I'm very social.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard to say. Because,
I always felt like a juxtaposition of a person. Yeah. In a way.
So it's one of those things of like the human condition, the human psychology. We don't really know like what it is that we're going away from. But we have to do something else to fill our time, our energy, and to like prove otherwise that we're worthy of like doing something. Because to not do anything is like it's a scary thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, it's like almost more scary not to do anything than to do something. Like for me.
Yeah, then that comes like the human potential to be able to just do more and more and more and more.
Yeah, I like vulnerability. I almost feel like maybe in your case you like the physical demand maybe too, but maybe there's vulnerability in that.
There's vulnerability in that also. Because it also puts
probably where we kind of relate actually.
But there's also the other part of like people who just constantly put themselves in a state of like suffering and doing to like learn about themselves and just do more. Like there is a learning aspect to it, but there's also the part of like why do you need to keep doing more and proving that you have to do this thing.
And not to keep relating it back to myself, but I always feel like I need to push the boundary and, maybe become a better artist and maybe like start this podcast or, do something. But then at the same time, I'm cool with going away on like a 10-day vacation to Italy and like laying on the beach and doing nothing. So like where do I, sometimes I wonder like, do I, not that I haven't figured out, but like, I don't know that I struggle with either one of those two things because if I want to do it, I do. If I don't, I don't. And I'm okay with also just laying around. And
that's the beauty of like the ability of being a human is that you get to choose what you want to do in your purpose, right?
Sure,
so you may think what you're doing is like is perfectly fine and it's content, like there's nothing wrong with that. But then someone else is going to, look the other way. So it's about just choosing. Like there is no inherent purpose in life.
There isn't.
You're supposed to do this or achieve that or be this or like,
and it sounds cliche. At the end of the day, we're floating around space on a rock. Like that's crazy in itself, right? Like,
I always love looking at those pictures of like how small the earth is or like looking at these timelines of the universe and just seeing like what a little blip we are, so there's like the universal reality of like how long the expanse is of like time and space. But then there's also like our reality of like what it means to survive as a human being for 75 years. What are we going to do with this time?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So then it just leaves us sitting there pondering like, so what do we do next? What is, and this was the question that I had for quite some time. Like what endeavor is worth it? Like what is worth my time and energy in this lifetime? And sometimes it's really hard to define because we're going to find those things out as we do more, right? So it's all
Yeah.
about like being and becoming.
Well, I think it's a great question, but I think it's a great question for oneself.
For
right?
oneself, yeah.
Yeah.
No one else is going to answer that for
They
you.
can't.
So it's just like, who are you and what do you want to do?
Sure.
You know? So it's
But I think with that being said, sometimes I have questions for myself, but sometimes I find the answers by leaning on great people who I respect too. Sometimes they point me to answer that question within myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's like beautiful too, right?
Yep.
Like sometimes you do get influence around you, or, you know, some person you respect or someone you see doing something beautiful. And it's like, yeah, they don't exactly have the answer for me. And even if they give me the answer, unless I believe that answer truly for me, it's not real, you know? But I can still maybe find things outside of me to then influence inside of me, maybe.
Well, you could only be something in comparison to like something else. You know, so you are who you are in relation to like everyone else.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
so you
yes.
can only be Bobby Cupparo because everyone else is not Bobby Cupparo.
It's kind of like light only exists, like
the darkness.
Yeah, or like what was I trying to say? Like light, like everything only exists because of the light. Like for example, if light didn't exist, then like our visual reality literally wouldn't exist. Like
It's just a different type of existence.
yeah. So, but like, I guess what I mean is like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying.
Yeah. So if you have somebody else, like it's always good to use other as a guidance, you know, to be able to like see, and like the story is always interesting. It's like, how did you get to where you are? Like, what are those pivotal moments? And like kind of how you help uncover like what led me to be here at this exact place. It's not one particular sequence, but it's like all of life's events. So just knowing like exactly where you are, you're exactly where you need to be to get you to where you want to be next.
Well, because any other thing besides where I am right now is an illusion.
Yeah. Doesn't
Literally.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no point in contemplating in the past, like what could
The
you
past
have
is
done?
already gone.
Yeah, and you
The
can't.
future is a delusion.
Yeah, you can't look into
Yeah.
the future. So it's just about the present moment of like, who are you and what do you want and what are you doing?
Do you
with
ever
this
read
present time?
New Earth by Eckhart Tolle?
No, I haven't read that. One.
It's the best book ever.
Yeah.
It's my number one favorite book.
What's your big takeaway?
Kind of what we were just talking about.
Okay.
Like how the only thing that exists is now.
Yeah.
That would be my big takeaway.
Mhm.
But how now is kind of like the horizon, and like, you know, the sky is like, say, the future, and the ocean is the past, but that line is the now.
Yeah.
But like the now, as much as everything is in the now, it also like kind of doesn't exist because it's kind of always moving.
No, the now is always here. The future is always moving.
Yeah. Well,
Now is always here.
the now is always here, but
Yeah.
like as we're talking about the now, and like the fact that I talked about the now 5 seconds ago, it's already in the
different,
past.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like, you know,
I get that.
like,
Yeah. This is one of those things that like you have to sometimes slow down to just wrap your head around these concepts.
but like the only thing that really exists is the now.
Yeah.
Anything else is an illusion.
If you're anxious and you're nervous,
And you're in the future.
then you're in the future.
If
right?
you're
So-
depressed, you're in the past.
yeah.
Right.
So it's just understanding like this is all that you have, and like everything else is just made up.
And it means your mind is there because your
Yeah.
body's probably always in the present.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I know you're into meditation and breathing exercises and whatnot. And when you take a breathing and you focus on your body energy, it brings you to the present because it literally your body is in the present. Right?
It's more. I think it's more so your mind is in the present.
But what if your mind isn't? What if you're depressed and anxious?
Well, your body will physically always be in the present.
But that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Your body's always in the present.
But when you do the breathing, it's to help bring your mind to
To
realize
the body.
to the body that you're here.
That's what I
at
mean.
This particular time.
Because I'm saying if your mind gets lost from the present, because it can, right?
Yeah.
Via depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
Even when your mind is lost, your body's still rooted literally in the present because
Yeah.
it has to be.
Right. But then you're just not mindful, and you're not really in control of this body right now.
Yeah. So
You're
then when
letting
you
the
breathe,
depression or the anxiety.
you feel the energy, and then you can get back to the present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Because your body's always in the present.
Yeah.
It can't be anywhere else.
I agree.
But your mind can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the power of it.
That's cool, man. Hell yeah. I don't even know what else to say now.
No, I think that's a good way to wrap this
I think
one
that
up.
is a real good way to
We're
wrap
going
it
to
up.
let everyone else, let them, unpack their brain and just realize where they are at this time.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me out
Yeah,
here.
I
This is
really
a really
appreciate
cool time.
you
I'm
doing
glad
it.
you're getting this back
Yeah,
going
man.
again.
And I mean it, and it's, this is amazing.
Yeah. Just put the episodes out. People are ready for this.
That's what I'm
like
saying,
all the
yeah.
ones that you've had already.
Yeah, I've been teasing them, but I'm just going to start doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Yeah, so thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it. And if you want to say where they can find you, all that stuff.
I'm most active on Instagram, so Andy Pho, AndyYPHO, and then Upside Tattoo is the tattoo shop that we're at.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. It's been great.
Yep.
Yep.
Love you, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
Love
it.
you too, man. Later.